It's like 30 million people playing this game. How many people are killing people? Plus, come on, let's be real. It's League of Legends. At least in like Counter-Strike or Quake, you haven't gotten. In League of Legends, you're running around as like fucking Lulu, like. It's like what school shooting is going to be caused by that? Fucking Hogwarts. Yeah. Is Hogwarts going to get shot up? I don't think so somehow. Although actually, I guess that did happen.
That did happen. Voldemort did raid Hogwarts.
That was when it got bad though. That was when the books were.
There was also he also opened Chamber of Secrets and he killed the Muggleborn.
Right, this is going to be episode 19 of Listen, Loco, a show. You might think to yourself, it's quite a bizarre title for a show, right? Why isn't it like Listen, Loco with Thorin? Why isn't it something to do with my name, right? But the point of the show is that everyone is encouraged when they come on this show to just, when Loco's talking too much shit, which is like sort of like it's a byproduct of being alive, you just have to say, listen, Loco, and then tell him the way it actually is. So now that we know the ground rules, let's jump straight into who the guest is. So normally I don't give like a big, build up on who the guest is, but it's been a while since this guy was in the West on these sorts of shows. So our guest is the legendary Diamondprox, obviously jungler for most famously Moscow 5, Gambit Gaming, still in Gambit Gaming now, but a different version of Gambit Gaming. And if anyone knows what Season 2 was like in League of Legends, you will know that the best team in the world in Season 2 was not the Taipei Assassins. They were the best at the very end. The best team in Season 2, and who should have won the World Championship.
Azubu Frost?
If they'd have banned Nidalee, just ban Nidalee. Like, if I had a time machine, that's all I'd do. I'd go back to after game 2, I'd just go, just ban Nidalee in game 3, you win. And then they'd be in the final, and then Azubu Frost, who, credit to them, they did kick Loco, so they did some good things that year, would have then also lost to a European team. And then a European team would have won 2 worlds in a row, and then if you think we're insufferable now in Europe, that would have been the end. That would be way too much. Imagine Loco if Europe had won the first 2 of the championship.
Oh my God. We would never hear the end of it.
The shit talking would never end, would it? Like, it'd be ridiculous. So, okay, Diamondprox. People know, obviously, your history in the past. Maybe they don't know more recently because they've only seen you guys in the wildcard tournaments and these sorts of angles. Let's start with some old school stuff, shall we? So the question I want to ask you to start with, right, is Season 2 was actually when Loco was at his peak as a player, when he was in Korea. Now, obviously, famously, Moscow 5 didn't go to Korea for those OGN tournaments. You guys stayed in Europe, and you didn't actually play against Koreans until the World Championship and the IEMs the next year. Did you know who Locodoco was back in the day?
That's actually... Yes, I knew who he was, but not because of his pro gaming career.
Oh my God! No! It's okay. He knew me. That's all we need to know.
Okay, right. Okay. So for whatever reason, some other reason he was famous. So yeah. Okay. I mean, I'm with you, Diamond. That's the first place I heard of him. But
shut the fuck up, Doran.
So anyway, he was known in the community already. Actually, for being a streamer, interesting enough, he was one of the early streamers who got success. So, okay, the question is this, though. Let's start with that topic, actually, because that's an angle I've heard a lot of people mention when they talk about Moscow 5 and that era. So people remember in Season 2, when Korea was starting to show they were really, really good, was obviously when, like, CLG was going to Korea. You had Fnatic went over, Dignitas, like a whole bunch of big-name teams went. But like I said, we never got to see Moscow 5, who at the time, everyone, you guys were number 1 in the world because the Koreans hadn't gone to the same tournaments as you. Everyone wondered what would happen if these teams play. And obviously we didn't see it until you got to the IEMs because you didn't play against Sword. They lost to Taipei Assassins. You didn't play against Frost because you guys lost to Taipei Assassins. When you look back, was it ever a possibility that you guys could have gone to those OGN tournaments? Like, did you get the invitation? Did you turn it down? What happened?
The short answer is I don't really know because we had a manager that was doing all this work with like which tournament do we go to and which do we not, and it basically was a really big question about money because the organization, especially in the end of the 2012, was struggling with money a lot because of the issues with like the head of our organization, and so if it would cost too much, we wouldn't go for sure, but. I don't know. I don't really know why we didn't even consider it as a team,
Because, by the way, Loco, I've seen I can't remember if it was an AMA or an interview, maybe it was in my interview. I remember Diamondprox actually said later on that now they look back and they sort of wish they could have gone to Korea and experienced what that was like, or played in OGN or something, you know, because obviously by the time it became LCS, unless you went to Worlds or whatever, you were just stuck in the LCS. You could never play those great teams and see what it was like. Back at Loco, what did you guys actually think in Korea? Like when Moscow 5 was winning everything in Europe, right? I always explain it like this to people. The regions were way more separated. Like TSM was just dominating NA, and then yes, a couple of times early on they came to Europe to play Moscow 5, but you know, during their prime, like those 4 or 5 lands in a row, they were just in North America. And then okay, Blaze came over once and beat them all up at the MLG arena, but you know, no one knew what would happen if TSM played Frost. And obviously, again, the regions were apart. M5 stayed in Europe and they were winning everything there, but that was before Koreans came, so no one really knew when Koreans got really good. Like, how do you sort of do that? What you like in MMA, we call it MMA math. Like, if Moscow 5 has lost to CLG EU, but CLG EU lost to Frost, does that mean Frost would beat Moscow? You know, when people try to do that, what did Koreans actually think? Like, did Koreans actually acknowledge M5 were number one?
Yeah, and we thought they were damn good. We watched them play, and one thing that was like really revolutionary that they did was they just played with a lot of priority lanes, and Diamondprox played invade a lot with, I remember Shyvana most infamously just living in enemy jungle. We watched together as a team and we're like, damn, what they're doing is really impressive and we should learn and copy from this. And yeah, we thought they were really good and we wanted to play them. Like, that's when I was on Frost, when I think I don't remember exactly what tournament, but it was a tournament where Diamond played Shyvana and maybe Udyr, I want to say. And
I believe I believe you're thinking of the IEM Katowice, the one that was like, IEM Kiev rather. IEM Kiev was the first tournament they won, and this is the one where they beat TSM, and in the final they did this. They, like, him and Darian swapped out Shyvana, who was playing it, and then I think he played Udyr at the time, if you remember.
Yeah, so...
I don't...
Or go ahead.
Was that wrong?
I don't remember what champions I played. I only remember I played Shyvana for sure. I played the game of Lee Sin and I played the game of Skarner. Everything else I don't remember.
Yeah. I know you definitely were an Udyr player though, because everyone remembers the next year when Insec was like super hyped, when his Lee Sin was obviously amazing and he was playing Zed and everything, and he came to that MLG tournament, if you remember, it was like the MLG Invitational, and that was the one where Diamond in the game just randomly got into a scenario where he got to do one of the only times I've ever seen this, a true 1v1 with like full health and both you one of your champions you want. I think Insec was on Lee Sin, and then Diamondprox obviously was a Lee Sin player as well. He was on Udyr, and then basically Udyr just you could tell Diamondprox knew the kit of Lee Sin very well because he like perfectly kites all the abilities of Insec and then just wrecks him basically. That was a classic moment. You remember that?
I do. It was fun actually. In the game, I remember at the moment when I was like 40% health, I think, and Lee Sin was coming to me to maybe fight. I was like, I'm not sure if I'm going to win this fight, but the game is already doomed, so I need to do something.
Right.
So I thought I won.
Well, what about the other side of that? Oh, sorry. Yeah, go on, Loco.
To finish up on like the watching M5 or Gambit or whatever they were called back then, from a distance, like we thought what they were doing was really good and really different. Like nowadays, like League of Legends is like super standardized, and like you have VODs, like you have replays, like people fucking watch people play solo queue for Christ's sake. So it was really interesting to see like a new take on the game, and we tried to copy it, and we were like, yeah, this is actually not going to work with our strengths and like what Cloud does, but we definitely had like Koreans in general, like it was us and Blaze at the top, and so I can say like those 10 people in that building were probably the top. We had 10 out of like the best 15 players or something, so we were the top players, and we thought M5 was really fucking impressive.
Okay, right, in line with the story I said there about Insects, at the time he was very well hyped, and I remember in interviews you were like complimentary, you know, like, okay, he's a very good player as well, but like I'm better or whatever. It was like a bit of trash talk. Did M5, before you ever played Koreans, did you actually care about Koreans? Did you think they were good? Did you know if they were good teams?
I'm not sure about the rest of the world, because Loco is saying Koreans were watching a lot of replays, but I really doubt that any Western team were watching replays of themselves even, let alone the other regions. So in our team was not an exception, or maybe we were an exception, and we were the only ones that were not watching any of the replays, and were just like basically playing the game. Every game is a new game, and we were only discussing them from our mind, and we were never watching replays of the game. So no, we didn't have a clue about other regions until we played them.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, Loco, this is an area we could actually have some fun with, because if you want to talk about the old school Moscow 5,
Yeah.
one of the areas where obviously Korea very quickly was able to get good was like all the infrastructure immediately, like team houses, sister teams, practice properly. As you saw yourself, if you're someone who's like arguing, you know, you get kicked out of the team.
Yeah.
Moscow 5, right? This is a great angle we can talk about, because at the time, when everyone looked at what they were doing in the game, they were like breaking it down, like, oh, see, they clearly understood, you know, the pressure here will lead to that. It's like, if you ever talk to them, though, like I was quite good friends with Gosu Pepper, Edward, and basically, he basically told me a lot of that shit was like, they never planned any of that stuff. Like, they would just try it in a scrim. If it worked, they would do it. Like, here's another angle, right, Diamond? They also obviously didn't live in a team house. Like Edward lives in a completely different place, miles away from the rest of them. That's why they used to do those like boot camps before the events. They all had to fly in miles and miles and miles, do a boot camp, then go to the event. Like the practice conditions were terrible at the time, right?
Yeah, I mean, one thing we'll say is like I remember Kane also talking really high about. There was two supports Kane really talked really high about. Oh, what was the TPA support? I completely forget. Mistake. And Gosu Pepper. Kane talked to me a lot about, this was when Kane was a player and I was on Nods, and he's like, yeah, the two supports I learned most from are Mad Life, and he said two, but he actually mentioned three: Mad Life, Mistake, and Gosu Pepper. He said the rune setup and the warding that Mistake and Gosu Pepper were doing were really different from Korea, and he complimented a lot, and he called them really smart. And then, like, from my perspective, until Diamond said, yeah, we just played, like, we didn't really think or anything, like, I'm blown away, because I thought what they did was like really smart overall as a team. Like, take very strong early defensive runes on bot lane, make sure they're pushing out, make sure mid is pushing out, make sure they have prio so they can invade with Shyvana or Udi or whatever they're playing. I thought it was like a team decision and they had it planned out. To hear that it was just something like random that they ended up doing is like funny and like I guess a little bit disappointing. I thought they were like super smart.
No, but here's the problem, Loco. There's two ways you can do it. You can either get disappointed and go, oh, it's not as genius. Or in a way, it makes the Mystique even sicker. Because it's like the idea these guys were just wrecking everyone. And everyone else, you know, was in team houses and practice. Like, and they're just going like, fuck it, you know. And they had that thing. I was like, you just see a hero, you kill a hero. It's like, that is true, but it's also not the way. It's not a plan to play League of Legends. Diamond, give us some insight on this. What was the setup in Moscow 5? Like, how did you practice? Did you only ever meet when you went just before a LAN? It was a boot camp. What was the like professionalism like in the team?
Okay, first of all, I will talk about both in-game and out of the game, like boot camping and stuff. First of all, about in-game. And I have a really good example of how our playstyle evolved in the beginning. You know, when I was just invited to the team, I was like basically nobody. I had really low elo, like not really low, but kind of low for like professional players. And I only accepted to play those ranked games because I was really bored and I had nothing to do. And
by the way, Loco, I'll just give him some context because Loco will know this. So back in the day, Loco, you remember the old numbers in ELO?
Yeah.
Diamondprox was only like 1,800 when they recruited him to the team, and he wasn't even was that wrong?
A bit. 1,742.
Okay. And he wasn't even a jungler, right? And there's a great story he tells in My Reflections where when he was playing an actual online like pro game, he just like Googled the Odd Ones guide to like Nasus or something and just copied everything while he was playing the game, like alt-tabbing out and looking at shit and just doing it like, oh, it seems to work. The Mystique's sick, dude. It's the Mystique that's the best part. Yeah, keep going. Sorry, keep going with the story.
So the best example, I only knew like 2 champions how to play in the jungle, except I knew actually 2. I only played Udyr back then and Mastery. And Mastery I was playing because Alexic was streaming a lot, and he was a jungler, and I saw he was like wrecking people with Mastery, so I stole his runes. It actually took a lot of time to grind them, like with the system back then. So I only knew how to play Mastery, Udyr, and maybe Lee Sin already came out. I don't remember. And so our first games, I remember them. We were playing against some European teams in Team Ranked. I don't know their names, but we were blue side, and I remember enemy team had like Gangplank jungle, and I was like, what should I do? I don't remember. Oh, the usual route was like first you do blue buff as every jungler, and then you go to your red. And so I was always doing my red buff first or blue buff and then going to enemy red to try and force a skirmish. So I was basically invading every game without, I didn't really understand why I was doing it. I just wanted to like fight with the guy. And so I was usually winning those fights, and that's actually why Alex, Genja, and Darian, I think So every game I was doing this cheese, and every game we were winning. So they felt like, oh, with this guy we actually start winning a lot of games. So maybe we should play with him more.
Okay.
And I think it never changed. So I was just, I was thinking, how can I fuck the guy up in the enemy team in the jungle, and I was working out from there. And I think a lot of that was the plan for the first 3 minutes, to just find the jungler and kill him. And after that, the dragon spawned. And dragon was giving like 1,000 gold or even more. So it was like a really huge snowball strategy, but we never thought it through. Like I really liked to invade, and Gossip Pepper really liked to win the bot lane, so he was always taking the and Genja too. They were always taking the best runes for bot lane, and like Diane wanted to win the early game top lane too. So we were basically like snowballing, but it was never talked about. We were only like practicing it, seeing the result, and maybe changing something because the result we didn't like the result.
Damn.
By the way, Loco, there's an example also of how ridiculous this was. Like, you have to realize, if you made a movie out of this story, everyone would be going, oh, come on, that's so unrealistic. Like, it's like the Mighty Ducks or something. Like, there's no way that'd happen. Like, do you hear what he said there? Because he hadn't played the game enough, he didn't even have all the runes. He just had to use whatever was there and just grind to get the other runes to play one champion. Like, he's a pro player. Like, nowadays, everyone has 1 million RP in every champion, don't they? It's a different world.
It's crazy to think about. And I'm kind of curious, is this like a commonality between all Russian teams? Because I remember in like Russian Dota, I remember things being very, very grassroots, and people would like, and they were, I forgot what team I'm thinking of, but Russians had like a really strong Dota team where they never kicked people and they just stayed as a group and they had their own style.
You mean Navi?
Is it Navi? It might be Navi.
They were the best Ukrainian and Russian team over history, yeah.
And then
they kept the same core for a long time, yes.
Is it also like that in CSGO, where Russian teams usually don't kick people and they have their own distinct style?
To a degree, like I'll say they keep players longer than other players. Like if you're a legendary player, they don't just boot you straight away like some Swedish teams or something. But I guess it could be a trend. What do you think, Diamond? Because obviously your team held together for a long time, right?
I think our team hold on together for a long time only because of one reason. You know the guy named Groove?
Groove, the manager, yes.
Oh, the belt guy.
That's the only reason why our team like stayed together for so long, I think. Because he was like ruling out a lot of problems inside the team, and a lot of people in the team wanted to leave at some point, and he tried to like from the beginning, after we played basically the first tournament or maybe first 2 tournaments, he told us that, guys, like you're a great team together. I don't know how you build it, but you're a great team, and you don't try to change someone. Just try to be better, and you will regret, guys, if you change someone too early. And he tried his best to get us stick together for as long as possible.
Because by the way, Loco, that's another thing that shows how different, like, they were over in Russia and you were Eastern Europe and you guys were in Korea. Because like I gave the example before, I'm not even saying this to Flame. Like the main reason you got kicked out of Meg Frost is because just being argumentative, not being like the right personality type for the team, etc. You know, people didn't like the idea that you were like arrogant or whatever. Well, in the Moscow 5 team, again, because the team play looked so amazing, everyone actually used to assume before they knew these players, like, oh, they must be the best friends, you know, they work together so well. Like, some of them hated each other at the time. Like, who was it? Diamond, what was the actual relationships like? Like, who were the ones who didn't get along and who were the friends, and what was the division like? I mean, there's a reason you always went top lane, right? Not top lane. True.
Edward's in chat, by the way.
Good.
No, I actually really liked all of the three laners, and Edward was my long-time buddy. But from time to time, you know, things change between like some people of us. You know, we could get when playing ranked games, someone could say some mean stuff to another person, and another person could like be mad at him, and they would start fighting, and they would say like something, come to bootcamp, I will beat your ass, or something like that.
Yeah, of
but
course.
In the end, after
best team
like
in the world, of course.
yeah, but after some time, it just cooled down. I think cooled out or something like that. Like we were never having like long-term bad relationships for the first year, I think, and then after that time we started having some inside troubles but that's
Sure.
another story.
Of course, yeah. By the way, if Edward's in the chat, and he really is here, I'm just going to relay this part of the story because people might know this detail. That one of the reasons why at one point in time Diamond and Edward had like a bit of a falling out was that Diamondprox allegedly, this is the story, this is the legend, is that Diamondprox's girlfriend just straight up flamed Edward for his looks and said he looked like shit. And I'm just going to say, Edward, listen, I know you, mate. You're a cool guy, so I know you can take this. Let's be real. You could go back and find a really bad picture of me. Go back to like, I don't know, 2008 or something. You could find a bad picture of Loco when he's like 17, you know, looking all awkward. Real talk. Yeah, it's horrible when someone flames you, but she had a point. You did look like a mad nerd, Gosu Pepper. Come on, homie. You did it. Now he's got it together. Now he's looking pretty slick. You know, come on, Edward. You know, homie. You know. Dude, so anyway,
and for old school teams, like girlfriends, a lot of times break up teams. It's girlfriends, like either two people on the team, like the same girl, or girlfriend, like is the manager of a team all of a sudden, and then like people on the team like don't like it, or like the girlfriend is like a streamer, and then like she's like with the team all the time, or like vlogging, and then like the players don't like.
But enough about CLG. Oh, sorry, no, you meant a different team. My mistake. That's by the way, what's good about it, if we don't explain it, that's just a nice little Easter egg for the old school fans.
But yeah, like girlfriend broke up a lot of the old school teams.
Moscow 5 was not an exception.
There we go.
Dude, it's crazy to hear like all of Moscow 5 started because like they randomly picked up some low elo jungler, and this low elo jungler, because he didn't know like what jungling was, he just wanted to beat up the other guy, and then it was working.
Isn't it? Yeah.
So everyone's like, okay, this shit's working. Let's go do it together.
I'll give you another example. In the very same team, at the very same time they picked up Diamondprox, Gosu Pepper, Edward, wasn't actually a support player. I think he used to play like AD carry. But what happened was, since the other players were better than him, he was just like, guess I'll just play support. And again, as you say, within months, like, was arguably the best support player in the world. One of the, everyone was copying the shit he was doing. So, here's the thing. Obviously, the game was way less developed. The game hadn't been an esport as long. So, like, was there a lot of room for creativity, Diamond?
I think there was. Every time a new game appears and it's not learned very well, and there is not a lot of data, there is like so much room for anything, like for new things to discover, for new strategies to be played and stuff like that. But once the game is being learned out, and also once a lot of data starts to be leaked from Riot's API, for example, then more and more people get to understand how the game actually works, and they start to like steal the strategies from each other and like cooperate with each other to think of what is the best strategy and stuff like that. And then a lot of creativity goes away. Yeah. So it was a lot of opportunities in the season 2, and we didn't even use all of them.
So
what do you think on that, Local? Because obviously that was one of the exciting things about the different regions, right?
I mean, what is it? All the reasons, because they don't share information with each other, because they don't play with each other, and there wasn't sites like u.gg or op.gg, or like replays were readily available on YouTube, and like people did solo queue replays. Like information was much more hidden and much more inaccessible. And also another thing was everyone thought they were the best. Europe thought they were the best. NA thought they were the best. Korea, China, Russia, everyone thought they were the best. So why would we need to copy these idiots? Like, we have the best shit. Like, so people didn't care as much. And then nowadays, like okay, when funnel was invented, right? And it was invented in some like random solo queue way, right? And then it got played instantly in like all 4 or 5 of the major regions, and like everyone knew how to play funnel, and they were innovating on top of funnel. When 2v1, CLG was doing their 2v1, or like any team had like a special 2v1, it would get figured out in weeks. Like nowadays, like if there is a pick that pops up, a strategy that pops up that's extremely strong, the information is so readily available, and everyone is trying to borrow from each other or trying to steal from each other. So yeah, like if you invent something creative nowadays, it's just not going to be yours. Like, it's just going to be spread really quickly, and it's really hard to keep things internal.
That's what makes me a little bit sad about professional gaming in League of Legends right now.
What about, I mean, you have a pretty good memory, Diamondprox, so maybe you can answer this. When you tried all this creative stuff and it was working and you were winning, you were beating the best players, like not just you individually, but as a team, all the amazing things that you guys tried out. Was there also a lot of shit that you tried out, maybe in scrims, that just didn't work at all? Like trying some crazy idea and it had no chance to work. You had to abandon it. Was there a lot of that stuff?
I think there was a lot of this stuff. I don't remember team rankeds, but I think there was no difference between like solo queue and team rankeds. We were always trying like whatever we wanted, and if it didn't work, like the person decided if it doesn't work or not, and not the other guys, or maybe except for the bot lane, because they were always talking with each other most of the time. And
Sure.
yeah, maybe Genja was influencing everyone else, but not everyone else were influencing others. And so, yeah, I think there were a lot of times when something just didn't work out. Like every patch, every big patch or big changes, or after some time, I just went through all the list of the possible junglers, and I felt like, what changed? Can this work? And then some stupid or crazy ideas came out, and I tried them. Like, I don't know, for example, like Amumu, when he was like kind of weak, I was trying him a lot of times, not like in a row, not 10 games in a row, but they changed something. I try him. I think he's bad. Like I forget about him. They change something more. I try him again. And so I tried a lot of picks like that, like Blitzcrank jungle, like Karma jungle. It actually saw one game, but I think it's really bad. Zed jungle. He was only strong for 1 or 2 patches, but I tried to play him more, and other people tried to play him more, but he was not that good. Like there were a lot of mistakes, and even in professional games like that.
Okay.
Sure.
I'll give it like a really great anecdote. So if you guys remember,
Well, we'll be the judge of that, but okay, go ahead.
Okay,
Give it a go.
if you guys remember, like 2 or 3 years ago, every person in Korea was wearing very dark framed like thick glasses, and then like a year ago, everyone
With no lenses in.
Yeah. Or even the ones with lenses in, they would always wear the really dark ones, like dark and thick ones. And then now it was like wireframe glasses, like a year ago, where it's like thin wireframe glasses. So Korea is like a very trendy country, like where when there is a trend, like we jump on the trend, and then like everyone like just does that trend. So it even applies into games. Like if you jungle in level, or if you play a level 1 game in Korea, there's junglers, which is like very unique to Korea. People, before even playing League of Legends, they look up what is League of Legends, how to play League of Legends, and they learn to play League of Legends, and they follow like a set guideline. It's like our culture, and then we do it this way. Like if you you can't even play level 1 games now. I think you have to go into tutorial, but before you could play level 1 games, and that's something very stark and different I noticed in NA and Korea. Like NA, there were no junglers because people didn't know what to do, where in Korea, even like the newest people learned. So like Korea, we always like try to copy and like learn from the best and follow like a set guideline. So, and we're not a very big country on innovation in general. So hearing like Diamondprox, like, oh, maybe a Mumu could work, maybe this could work. In Korea, it's like, no, that's just a waste of time. Like this champion's good, and then this champion's good. Practice, put your time into this, and then just get better and like keep getting better and better and keep putting depth into it. So when you try to tackle Koreans in a way where you play what's good and you play what's meta, like you often get destroyed. And I feel like that's why Diamondprox's mindset, and also Gambit and Moscow 5's mindset of like trying something new, being different, really made them the kryptonite for Koreans for like season 2 and some of season 3, where none of the other regions were able to challenge Korea because they were playing Korea's game, where Russians and Diamondprox were willing to do something different and take a very different angle that Koreans haven't seen before and did not expect before.
Well, that just brings up something we've got to ask him about, Loco, which is when your old teammates, Blaze and Frost, took an ass beating on the same day from this man on LAN when he won IEM Katowice in 2013. So this was an example of exactly what you're talking about, where Koreans came in with all these comps that were actually like late game comps, believe it or not, that they were running in OGN and they're obviously amazing at. And basically, from what I remember, I think Gambit was winning the games in like 20 minutes or something ridiculous. Can you tell us something about this story? Because this was the first time you played the big name Korean teams, Diamond. So did you actually, at this point in time, did you know they were good teams? Did you have respect? Did you scout them?
I didn't have any respect to them before the tournament. I didn't even know who they are. So, but
all right.
First day of the tournament, they were like Group A and Group B. And I think, how many teams were in the group?
There was 4 in each.
4, yeah, and only 2 got out. So after, I don't remember there were like how many games there were, but I remember we lost to some Korean team, and then we like made the biggest troll team comp that was ever played in professional game against some American team, and we lost to them too.
It was Team Curse, and they were actually using, I can't remember his name, I think it was Rox, and they were using him in like the wrong position. Like he was like I think he was like the fucking support or the jungle or something.
Yeah, I remember.
Even at the time, he was like a mid laner or something, right?
You know how Rux got onto the team? Curse held like a 1v1 tournament, and whoever won that 1v1 tournament, they would pick up as a sub, and that was Rux.
Really?
Yeah.
So we lost to those guys somehow. Like you can watch the game; it's pretty fun. It's like the biggest troll comp ever made, and we were already like two losses, and we had only one game left. And if we would win this game faster than like 27 minutes,
based on time was the time.
Yeah, we would get out of groups, and we somehow won. And after the first day, I think we had 1 day break or maybe half day break, and we started to think like our comps don't really work, like we don't know how to play. And then I just went to Google some change, like I just went to Google the recent changes because it was like a lot of changes being made. And then I saw an item that was called Locket, and I saw like this thing has so many stats and it's so cost efficient. I will build, like, it's actually maybe twice more cost efficient than it costs. Awesome. I was like, everyone should build this item in our team. And I'm like, who can build this item? And I play Xinjiao and he can build this item. He needs VDR, he needs resistances, and it's really cool. So I will play Xinjiao. Who else? Mundo can do it too. So those are the only 2 champions that I could play that could build Locket. And so I went the next day and we've beaten Koreans
2-0 each time, I think, yeah.
Not very hard. I think the Locket invention was like some part of our success.
Yeah. So I remember this tournament exactly because I was actually casting this tournament back in Korea. So there's this thing called NLB, like Nice Game City, Nice Game TV.
Nice Game TV.
Yeah, Nice Game TV. I was casting with them, and I was watching them like getting spanked. I was actually very favorable for Azubu Blaze and Frost because I didn't want to be like, oh, that salty person that got kicked and it's like flaming people. But I was having a blast. I loved watching. I was like, oh my gosh, like they're getting wrecked. What to do? They need to ban Zinzao. And the inside of
internally,
oh, you stupid fucking monkeys. Like I love watching you get wrecked.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I remembered one thing. We also, after the first day, we realized the best strategy against Koreans, and I think it still works. And whenever Ezreal or Caitlyn is in the meta, you need to ban it against Korean teams, and then you will win games. And that's what we followed throughout like many years and brought us some success.
Okay.
Oh, one other thing why Koreans are so inflexible and why I think Diamond and Russians are very flexible is the amount of practice. Like from what he says, it doesn't sound like they practice much, so they're not very invested into the practice they have, and they can be like, hey, let's just try something new. Like where Koreans, like they practice so much and they have such a regimented practice where if they want to change something, right, they're like, we already invested so much time and like we're very, very proficient in this, like there's no reason to change it. So it is like very different approaches and clashing, and it's incredibly funny to hear about like how just sporadic and like random Gambit was.
There is actually an angle to that particular win, though, where, like I say, they beat the 2 Azubu teams back to back that people probably don't realize, which is on the one hand, the thing I always say to make it fairer to the Koreans is, like, to be fair, all the Korean teams you've ever seen were playing in like OGN, where you have like a week between the playoff series and you just scout that opponent and you test things out. Whereas obviously there's an IEM tournament, you play the day after you get out of the group stage, like you don't have that prep time. But then on the other side, what makes it still crazy is that he did beat sister teams. So if you think that like when they beat Frost didn't go straight to Blaze and tell them all the shit they were doing and like, here's what we should have done. Here's what you should. Of course they did. Like, come on, Loco. They must have put heads together and done all that stuff. Like, especially with the coach, same coach on both teams, right?
Yeah. So, man, like the more I guess talk and hear about Diamond, like the more I'm like, just what the fuck are you guys doing? Like, and how is this shit working?
Here's the thing though, Diamond. Obviously, people know in the story this angle, like I alluded to it a bit earlier, that the LCS began, and obviously then you were competing in Europe and you had to fly to Cologne all the time, right? People have heard some of the details of how ridiculous the travel schedule is. Because for anyone who doesn't know, teams like Evil Geniuses, so CLGEU, teams like SK, teams like Fnatic, they all just, because they were European, just moved to Cologne, got a team house, and just, had to just walk to the studio or take a tram or something, right? Moscow 5 was Gambit at the time, was flying in every week to play their LCS games. Give us an explanation, Diamond. What was your travel schedule like each week to fly in and play LCS?
Oh, that was actually crazy. But for me, it was the easiest thing because I was living in St. Petersburg, and St. Petersburg has really straight flights to, like, not Cologne, but I don't remember what city. But
Maybe
the city,
Dusseldorf or something.
yeah,
I
I think
think that's quite
sometimes
close.
I was traveling through Düsseldorf and sometimes through, uh, oh, I don't remember, another like really big
Munich or something, maybe.
Frankfurt.
Frankfurt. There we go. Yes.
Yeah, and so it was basically for me only like 3 hour or 4 hour travel, maybe a little bit more because I had to use the train and I had to wait for the train from like Frankfurt. But other than that, I only had to like travel there on like
Okay.
I don't remember, Friday, and then stay one day there doing nothing, and then we would play Sunday and Saturday, and then I would fly back and we would get some practice together. I don't even think we had a gaming house back then. We were always practicing from home, as far as I remember. Or maybe sometimes
Okay.
I think before the playoffs and big tournaments.
I think you did a boot camp before that, right? Yeah.
We did boot camps, but during the split we were just like traveling for 3 days to play in
Sure.
LCS and then traveling back home, and we were always like playing from home. It was like, I think it was so inefficient of practice, and
Of course, yeah.
and it's me who had to travel for 3 hours. Darian, for example, once traveled for 20 hour in one like
Each week.
yeah, no, 20 hour to Germany and 20 hour back. It was, I think he
I think
enjoyed this fight.
Didn't Edward also have some crazy travel time because he was coming from like, doesn't he like Omsk or something?
Yeah, Edward had consistently long flights because he's from Omsk, but those flights were always the same, and so he was always like kind of tired, but not so much. But Diane flights from Voronezh were inconsistent, and sometimes he was like really fast, but sometimes he had to travel for 20 hours to Germany, and that was insane.
Yowza.
Okay. Because you know, like in that first LCS split, Loco, was when like the Fnatic team and Gambit were like neck and neck, and they actually went to the finals together, and it was a 5-game series. And at the time, I remember all the people who were like journalists and casters being like, "Wow, Fnatic has finally done it. They've taken down Gambit. They're the #1 teams." And I was like, sort of. Like you did beat them in the game, but you also were just living in the same city, practicing all week, coming and playing them while they're just like flying for like 28 hours, like, please God, kill me. And then when they arrive, like he says, if they arrive a day early, Loco, they can't practice. They don't have any PCs. They just sat there like, when do the games begin? It's like, if you had to make the most unfair fight of all time, you'd make it like that. Like one person's circumstances are amazing. The other guy's got the worst circumstances possible.
Mm-hmm. Why couldn't you guys just live in Germany or like all live in a city?
We're going to get to a very interesting topic now, because this is the reason why Diamondprox is not in the LCS anymore. So can you explain the exact details here? What were the circumstances at the time with like the difficulty of getting a visa, or what was the situation, Diamondprox? Because it's different for Russians, by the way, Local, because they're not in the EU. Whereas if you're in the EU, you can just freely move between any country.
So Russia isn't part of like European Union? Okay, I had no idea.
Wait, so this is a problem. Okay. Yeah, so you have to basically get a visa if you want to stay long term, especially work. So give us the information. Like, did you guys try in the early days to get a house and get some sort of a visa or something?
So back then the problem was that a Russian guy, when he gets the usual like travel visa, like to visit the country, basically like a tourist visa, he can only stay 90 days per half a year, and that's not even it wasn't even enough to play all of the LCS days, I think. So we couldn't, like, it was really hard for us to make to all of the LCS matches. I don't remember how we scheduled. Like sometimes we were just flying to the day of play. I remember straight from the plane I went to play the game, just to not overuse those 90 days, because then you will never be able to like come to Germany again. And so the gaming house was out of option. But then through some interesting changes to season, I don't remember when we were playing LCS with like Cabo Chart.
That was season 5.
Yeah, in season 5 we managed, through some hard work of our manager, managed to figure out how to stay in Germany for for some time to practice and have a gaming house, but before that it was impossible. And now that Riot Games require every player to have the official contract and a working visa to have this contract, then every Russian player that wants to play in LCS needs to have a working visa. And so working visa is not that easy to obtain because no one in Germany really not understands, but they don't recognize esports as sports, and so they don't give visa like United States for these kind of things. Because I had my not working, but a visa for esports in United States, and it was not that hard to get. But in Germany, it's not even a thing. And if you want to get your working visa as a Russian guy, you at least need to have a degree. But I couldn't get a degree because I was already a professional player.
Yeah.
I had to skip the university to go and be professional player. So
then
actually, there's an angle here I can explain to you, Loco. Because this.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, go on.
Well, there is a question that I have to ask. Diamond, you know who LMQ is, right?
LMQ?
Yeah.
Oh,
like a team.
I guess.
Like
a team that from China traveled to North America.
And LCS, yeah.
Why didn't you did the timings ever overlap where you guys were still S5 and you guys could have all 5 just gone to NA instead and competed in North America?
I think so, but we were not as advanced to consider this possibility, I think. Or maybe it was considered on the back then I didn't have a voice in the decisions of the team, I was not asked what we were going to do. Or maybe sometimes, but not all the time. I didn't know everything that was going behind the scenes, so maybe I was just not present in those talks that people considered to go to NA or stuff like that.
Okay.
I don't know if it was considered or not.
I can tie that into what I was going to say actually, Loco, because the thing is, there's more context here to the whole situation they were in. So in terms of what you were just saying there, why not just go to NA? Well, I mean, there's a few very obvious reasons. Not obvious as in I'm flaming you, as in just if you know the circumstances, it's clear it couldn't work. First of all, if they wanted to stay in Gambit Gaming, Gambit is not at that time especially was not an org with unlimited money. They weren't a massive org. In fact, we won't get into it now because it's actually considered a secret of the industry. But this is true, Loco. It's going to blow your mind. Nobody in the world knows who owns Gambit Gaming.
How?
To this day.
How
because
that
they choose
work?
not to reveal it. I've once brought this up on Summoning Insight because I knew Edward told me I can't say it, so I did it as a joke, right? Gambit Gaming, this is true, is registered as a UK company. So, by the way, the UK are fucking killing it in League of Legends. Where you at, bro? We had the best team in 2012. No, so anyway, obviously they're not the UK company, but no one knows, and all you need to know is this. Even though Edward speaks very good English, when I asked him, he had a straight fire way of not revealing it by just going, when I said, so who really does own this team? And what's going on with that? Because I said to him, wait a minute though, Edward, if the team's based in the UK, then why don't you just get EU visas via that? And then he just goes, little English. I have little English, because he didn't want to answer the question. Obviously, because it's some secret, Loco. Don't probe this one. We can all get killed.
Okay.
So, it's like me asking you about fucking, what about all that match fixing going on in the behind the scenes in Korea? It's like, that doesn't exist. What are you talking about, Thorne? There is no match fixing there. Definitely not. Anyway, I've never heard of any. So, no, here's the other angle to it, right? It's first of all, the other reason also why they probably couldn't have done it like LMQ is at that particular time, if you remember, the whole thing where everyone memed on Riot. Do you remember when Riot bragged, we have talked to the US government and they're going to give much better visas to esports pros now. Yeah. And that turned out to be absolute nonsense, basically. Everyone who applied, it was exactly the same application as before. And whether you got accepted or turned down was the same. And so famously, for example, Broken Shard applied to go to Complexity and they basically looked at his situation and they were like, who the fuck's this guy coming from Israel? And then they looked into Complexity and they were like, this isn't a big org, this is some small team because Complexity wasn't that big back then. Yeah. It would have been the same for Gambit. If you applied hey, we want to come and try and get promoted into the LCS and we're a team from Russia that no one in this office is going to know, they would just be like, I'm going to say not approved. You'd never get it. But anyway, back on the European angle.
Wait, I want to... What is it? A lot of people just came on visiting visas and they were just banking on once they make LCS that they would get the...
They used to until this little snitch bitch called Reginald decided to get a competitor advantage by revealing that people were staying on visas. Right up until then, he was loving those transit visas. He was like, come on, Björkson. Hey, you're just straight over the next day. How'd you get that visa? Don't know. Must be a big TSM fan. Yikes. And then obviously just fucking wrecked everyone the next season, didn't he, little rat?
I ain't.
Whatever. Today I put out a video praising him. I have to go counterbalance now. Tell you the truth, Loco. You'll know how it is.
Sure,
That's another one of those secrets of the industry, right? We all know motherfuckers were there. Oh, I'm coming to see New York City. Or something. Yeah, sure you are, motherfucker, whatever. Like, LA, I guess it would be that scenario. Right, okay, the other angle is this. What Diamondprox was referencing there, where later on, the real reason they couldn't then compete in the LCS is as part of this, by the way, this is literally all connected together, actually, believe it or not. You've accidentally done it, mate. Which is when Reginald did say all that stuff, and then it emerged that some teams weren't using players with proper visas. Riot made it a rule that you had to show that you had a working visa to be allowed to play.
Yeah.
That is literally the reason why Diamondprox and Edward couldn't play in the LCS anymore. Because as Diamond's saying, when they applied for visas, there's two angles that's a real problem here.
Yeah.
One is that Germany, even though a lot of esports to this day is held in Germany, like the LEC is still in Germany.
Yeah.
To this day, Germany does not acknowledge esports as a thing. And the reason why is because, unfortunately, in like the early 2000s, they had like a school shooting. And if you remember back in the day, they always used to claim that like school shootings were caused by playing video games, right? And the media and the politicians did such a good job that to this day, they don't properly acknowledge esports games. And it's like, even though it's a very developed esports infrastructure, it doesn't even have the benefits of like, much like I think France even acknowledges it even further. So the problem was when you applied, like Diamond's saying here, you were basically applying as though you were like a skilled worker that was required in Germany. Well, the problem is if they don't know anything about League of Legends, they're just going to look at the requirements and they're going to go, right, you need a degree. I remember Diamondprox even said you had to have like $41,000 salary or something a year. Mate, this is season 5 in the EULCS. You think they have $40,000 a year salary? Do they shit? There's no way. So as a result, they couldn't meet any of the criteria and they had to just go back to Russia. Or in Edward's case, Omsk and whatever,
Yeah. Dude, the gun shooting like thing is, where do you think that comes from? Like the video games, like being associated with like gun shooting thing. Like,
well, if I had to guess, I would just say this. Like, it's a topic I have looked into because I looked into the American side of it. Obviously, where there was that famous guy like Jack Thompson going around saying it was the cause of it. The big problem is this, isn't it, Loco? It's like, what is the most likely reason why kids shoot up schools?
Because they're like bullied and they don't have like parents that like really like take care of them.
The simplest way to say it, and I'm sure some of them might have been crazy, the simplest way to say it is it's a social problem, right?
Yeah.
Well, who the fuck wants to hear, oh, the reason this kid killed all the people in our town, it's us. It was us and our kids that made him do it. No one wants to hear that. Politicians are about saying the things that people want to hear so they get elected. So no politician is going to run on the platform of like, you know what? The only way to solve all these school shootings is your piece of shit kids have to actually start being nice to people. Look, no one's going to do that. So instead, if you tell people, oh, you know those video games you're always telling your kids to stop playing and study? Well, even worse than that, they're not just wasting their time. They're turning into school shooters and fucking criminals, and they're all evil and stuff like that. If you think of like all the like fucking people in like the Bible Belt in America, I bet they was lapping that shit up like, oh yeah, yes, the devil is in that game, like they were loving it. Obviously, it's like the comforting lie that people want to hear, isn't it? It's like I can understand why they accept it. Problem is, if you're a gamer, you're like, come on, man, how many of us are doing that? There's so many players. It's like 30 million people playing this game. How many people are killing people? Plus, come on, let's be real. It's League of Legends. At least in like Counter-Strike or Quake, you haven't gotten. In League of Legends, you're running around as like fucking Lulu, like. It's like, what school shooting is going to be caused by that? Fucking Hogwarts.
Yeah.
Is Hogwarts going to get shot up? I don't think so somehow. Although actually, I guess that did happen.
That did happen. Voldemort did raid Hogwarts.
That was when it got bad, though. That was when the books were
there was also, he also opened Chamber of Secrets and he killed the Muggleborn. Anyways, I think a huge reasoning why guns...
You know, if you were in the Harry Potter universe, I think you'd be Muggleborn.
Fuck you.
With no wizarding
I'd be
powers.
pureblood. I'd be pureblood. I come from a really good family. You be Muggleborn, Thorin.
I'd be fucking Harry Potter then, wouldn't I?
You'd be a squib. You'd be a squib.
Didn't matter what odds were against me, even when the fucking people who were like institutionalized are trying to fight against me, like fucking Reginald, Professor Snape over there being an arsehole, I'd still beat them all. I'd think, just because I have the
Thorin, you'd be Voldemort. You'd be a Death Eater. In what world are you Harry Potter? You'd be a Death Eater.
No, because deep down I'm secretly a good guy, aren't I?
No, you'd be a Death Eater, Thorin. You'd be a Death Eater.
No way. There's a character that is like a really good reporter there, but she's a female. Rita Skeeter. You'd be Rita Skeeter. Anyways, to talk a little bit about like the shooting and stuff, like I think one reason why like it got out of control in America regarding video games getting linked to shooting, so people that have internet like usually
kids usually go on 4chan and they also play video games because internet is like
Okay.
the common denominator. And there was this one time on 4chan where someone was like, hey, I think you guys are cool. Don't come to school if you go to blah, blah, blah high school. And then, what is it? 2 days later, that school actually got shot up. And then, like, this guy was like a gamer. And then they link, yeah, this guy was a gamer. He went on these, like, websites like 4chan. And then, like, the school got shot up. So, like, I remember that my mom quoted me that article. And she was like, you should not be playing video games. Like, really, mom? Like, really? Where the fuck am I going to get a gun? I live in fucking Korea. Like, it's so fucking hard to get a gun here. Like, like
You
why
say
would
that, but I'm gonna have to reveal a story that I heard that actually I was gonna keep secret, but if you're gonna mention that, I'm gonna have to tell this story. So actually, back in the day in Korea in 2012, a similar thing happened. Actually, it was really disturbing. This guy went on the DC Inside forum, and his alias on the forum was like Super Yunshop. It's like a really weird name. And then this guy's alias posted a story. It was like, I'm anonymous, but don't come into the OGN spring final tomorrow. Everyone's going to get killed.
Oh my God, Doran!
It was a slaughter. It was a complete whitewash. Like, somehow he knew. It was an inside job. What the fuck?
God damn, Doran. You know I'm still trying to get sponsors, right? You know I'm still trying to get sponsors.
So I lured you in with that story.
Oh my God. So for the people that don't know, like, so I made a sponsor deck and I'll go to sponsors. Like, it's a really nicely made deck and like,
it's pretty
Doran,
good. Yeah,
Doran's seen it. And then a question I always get is like, Doran's associated with saying stuff like this, saying stuff like this. Can you control that? I'm like, I mean, if the sponsorship's good, I could talk to Doran about it.
Depends what the number is. We'll see what we can figure out.
And they'll be like, okay, well, we really like the product and we'll watch the show. And then you say shit like this, and I'm like, oh my fucking God, please don't be watching the show right now.
So anyway, ignoring all that stuff, get back to the other topic, right? What actually was it like when that happened, Diamondprox? Like when you found out you basically couldn't go to the LCS, like did you guys actually ever think of like quitting or whatever? Because at the time the Russian league was pretty small, right?
Yeah, the Russian league was only, I think, 1 year old or something like that, and we didn't really want to play in it because it was very small and it had a really hard terms to qualify for Worlds and to participate in the big tournaments. And also it only had like maybe 1,000 viewers or something like that during like the playoff split. And but we had no other choice. So when we were like released from our European teams because there was no reason like to hold us because we couldn't play anymore anyway. Edward decided to play in Russian team immediately, I think, but I took some time off. I didn't want to play in spring, but then Groove asked me if I want to help Gambit get into the Russian league, and so I was like, okay, it will be fun because they're like players that I never played with, and it was interesting for me what the experience will be like. And so I played for a little bit more than 1 month, and we won our qualification to the LCL, Russian League. And then after that I said, I don't really want to play in LCL. I think this league is like too small. I want to try something in May, but this try wasn't not a success at all. And so
can you tell us about that? Because like you went to the Apex was the team, right? Wasn't that? Am I remembering the right team? The one that like St. Vicious was the coach of. Like what happened there? Because people don't know this. Diamond actually did come to NA and he was in Challenger, but yeah, what happened? I never actually found out what was the problem.
The problem was that I was not playing LCS. That's the biggest problem. But why I was not playing LCS, that's another story. I don't really know the truth as I was only a player, but like from what I felt, it was like I was signing a contract 1 month before LCS started, or maybe a little bit more than 1 month. And when we had a 1 month boot camp in Korea, where they should have decided if I'm going to play in an LCS order or not. But as I thought I'm going to play an LCS, of course, and I thought that it's no question that I'm going to play there because of the talks with whoever I was signing contracts with.
Oh,
so
that was a Slan team. So David Slan, he's the owner of Coast, and then also became part owner of Dignitas, and also in Apex. Like, there's been a lot of how do I phrase it, Doran?
Shady.
Shady, shady. Like talks with players.
Okay. However, and so when I come to the bootcamp in Korea, I'm being told by Saint Vicious, or I don't know how it worked, but soon I realized that we're going to how to say, fight for the main roster spot with the other jungler. And when I was going when I was signing contract 3 days before I traveled to Korea, I only played for those 3 days after some break, after like 1 month or something break. And so I was not that good, but I tried to get back in shape. And then I played like for 3 days straight, and then I went to Korea. And holy shit, I really struggled there to get back into the shape, while also playing scrims where I should show some like really good results, so Saint Vicious will believe that I'm a good jungler and will take me to the main roster. So it was the biggest struggle of my life in League of Legends, probably this 1 month of like practicing, like trying to get in shape and also playing those scrims. So those scrims were like a really, I don't know. I never want to play scrims like that anymore. It was way too hard. Also, a lot of people in the team didn't speak English. Once a scrim was like me and 4 Korean guys, and nobody spoke any English. How are you supposed to like show something in this game when you were playing like with the full Korean roster? And so after this month, it was decided that basically I'm not playing in the main roster, and then after that it was a really hard split in even the academy roster, but I think it was because of the other problems. And after that, I decided that maybe coming to NA is too hard of a thing if you don't come to the best organization, because you never know where you're going to end up playing.
Yeah.
Like, here's the thing, Loco. The problem with that scenario is, I'll give the serious version, which is, okay, I can believe this story. You know, maybe they didn't like what they saw in scrims, or they didn't think his comms were fitting the team, and they went a different route. But there's a part of me that just loves stories, that wants it to be true, that what really happened was Diamond just picked the wrong team to go to. He shit pushed in by Diamondprox for years and years, when he was just like, oh, just a trip over and just completely reinvented how this game works that you guys were the best at. And they were like, help, how do we do it? What are we doing? Help, I'm playing a Moo and I'm getting wrecked, help. And then what happened was, in interviews, it's actually quite famous. I did a grilled interview with Saint Vicious, and I'm not going to lie, listen, I love Saint Vicious. Not a big fan of his opinions on, you know, psychiatry and stuff, but okay, big fan of him. But I will say he was a tad salty about Diamondprox, right? Like at one point in this interview, he tried to claim that like Diamondprox hadn't really even like innovated much, you know, like really like Cyanide from Fnatic was the real innovator, you know, like besides he's like quite overrated anyway. And like a couple of years later, obviously when he joins his team, and even at the time I was thinking like, that seems like there could be, well, it's, as you say, recipe for disaster is the idiom we have in English.
Dude, all the old school players hated everyone else. Like,
of course,
Special, Reginald, me, like all the old school NA players. Chowster, we had him on the first show. He thought he was still the shit. There were so many points in the show where I was like, damn, Chowster, you're just straight wrong. But I just wanted to keep the show going. And like, Thane's the same way. Like, it's just like, back then, as we talked about, like all the old school players thought their region was the best, and within their region, if they were the top player, they thought they were the best in the world. So I don't even blame Thane. Everyone had that opinion.
Oh, what would you say, Diamond? Because obviously, like, there was a lot of shit talking back in the early days of being a pro, right?
We didn't consider ourselves the best, I think. At
That's
least
bullshit.
until some point.
That's bullshit.
That's
really?
Okay.
You guys didn't think you guys were good?
When we were coming to IEM Kiev, I don't know. We didn't consider ourselves being too good. Like, we made one good play, which was Empire, and then we didn't know how it would go. And then even I remember the day before semifinals in IEM Cologne, it was the first World Championship IEM.
It was in Hanover. Yeah, it was the
Hanover. Yeah, Hanover. And so before the semifinals, I was like, I'm not sure if we're going to win. And then some guys from NA were staying like close to us on some, like we were trying to catch a bus or something in the evening.
Okay.
And they said, of course you're going to win, guys. You're so good. And I'm like, are we that good even? Like, why do you guys, like, in my mind, I thought, oh, why do those people think that we're good? I don't consider us being too good. And then after that, like, we wrecked semifinals and finals without a single chance. And then I look back at those words, and maybe the guy knew something, which I didn't know.
See, here's the problem, Loco, is that unfortunately, as Diamondprox has learned English and he's gotten more and more fluent, unfortunately, this is a terrible thing. I hate it when it happens. He's also actually learned like Western culture, and he now understands etiquette and how to be polite. And even worse, he's learned how to answer politically, and to say the right things. Because you have to understand, back in the day, it's the reason why, by the way, I used to love Russian Quake players in the early days of esports. Because when they ever did the interviews, they have totally different etiquettes. They would just be saying the wildest shit about other people. Like, I'll give you an example. There was once a really legendary Quake pro. He was called Polo Asset. He was like the original best Quake player in the early days of esports. And when people first met him at some events, they were like, wow, what a crazy guy. And then when we all got back home, right, he was like finally part of the Western community. He was like on IRC messaging us all. And I remember he's just sent a random message. He barely spoke English, by the way. He just sent a random message to some like guy from Wales, actually, which is like a small country at the bottom of the UK. And there's a guy that was a friend of mine. And he just sent him a picture. It was just a picture of a matador and a bull. Yeah. And the bull had its horn right up the arsehole of the matador. And the matador was like, oh. And then all he said, he just linked this picture to him, and he just wrote, I am the bull, you are the matador. And then the guy was literally just like, oh, fuck, what the fuck's this guy sent me that for? Like, it was just inside his head. Like, so anyway, the point I'm getting to here is, like I said in the beginning of the episode, right? I've done a reflections interview with Diamondprox on my channel, and he speaks in English. It's very good. He's very eloquent, But when I did my grilled interview in 2013 with Diamondprox, it was all translated. And when he was translated, this guy, at least he came off like the most arrogant motherfucker in the world, but in a good way. Like it was like an anime, it was kind of cool. He was like the sort of rich kid character who's just like naturally really good. He's like, I do respect your abilities in the game. Like he was like, because like when I asked him, for example, what do you think of like American junglers, like Saint Vicious and the Odd One? And he was just saying stuff like basically along the lines of like, I don't think they have any good junglers, just straight up just flaming them for no reason.
I love that's true, but that's true. I'm not saying that I didn't like. I'm saying I didn't think that we were best, but I knew that some people were like very bad. So I said those things.
See, that's it. He's done it. He's done it, Loco. That's the clever way you say it. You go, listen, I don't think we're the best, but everyone else is fucking trash compared to us. Like, that's a genius way to just say you are the best in a way, right?
Dude, I love season 2 and season 3 because everyone was a character. Like, this was before like all the PC stuff, and like we were paid shit tons of money where it wasn't worth it anymore to like say like slurs or like just not speak our minds. Like everyone always just spoke their minds. Like everyone got drunk at events. Like it was the best. And I loved how each region and each team within that region had like signature picks. They played their own style. It's not like so normalized like nowadays. Like everyone was just so different. And yeah, like I remember hearing crazy stories about Russians, and I remember like the Diamond girlfriend that we talked about earlier, like Diamond said in a story, or she said in a story, I remember EULCS had like a girlfriend like segment. They legitimately had like a girlfriend segment where like girlfriends of like players were on. Like she was talking about how she met Diamond. She was like, oh yeah, I was playing with Diamond in a game, and then he started flaming me, and then we added each other after game to flame each other, and then we started talking.
Must be love at first sight.
We started dating, and I was like, holy shit, like Jesus Christ, like Russians are crazy. So a lot of what Diamond said like links up to what I heard and thought about them, and a lot of them is just like, damn, you guys just diss stuff without thinking about it. Where like me growing up in Korea and playing in Korea, we're just always like thinking like how do we make this happen? Like what should we do next? And then these people are just like randomly playing always. God damn, it still blows my mind.
So what about when you went after this Apex period? You obviously eventually did go to the LCL, the Russian league, and as we can see from the jersey you're wearing, you joined Gambit Gaming again, where Edward plays. Like, what is the Russian league like in the modern day? Not like at the beginning. What's it like now? Like, how big is it? Is it like, for example, is it like televised anywhere? Are there a lot of fans if they have the finals? Can you give us like a sense of what the league's like?
I would say it's not that big. Like there are a lot of like really huge leagues like LCS, NA, and EU, and then Korean League, and then Chinese League. Those are like giants. Then there's like a semi-giant league. I think it's like Turkey.
Sure.
Maybe
Brazil.
South America. Yeah, Brazil.
Yes. Brazil, Taiwan.
And those are like semi-huge regions. And our region is like smaller than them. One of the smallest probably. But maybe not the smaller one. And so we don't have like too much money or too much fame, but we play to get to Worlds, or at least our team plays to get to Worlds in MSI and try to show something there. So.
Okay.
Yo, one thing I'm
cool.
curious about is like, so in Russia, I heard Dota is still big. How much like Russian esports is Dota and Counter-Strike versus League of Legends? Because most major regions, League of Legends is the biggest esport or the second biggest esports. In Russia, is like League of Legends even third?
I don't think League of Legends is even third. Russians, I don't know. It's some kind of maybe it's because of League of Legends PR in Russia that it didn't succeed and it was not even good, or maybe because Russians just like to beat each other like with something like really easy. For example, in Counter-Strike, you just go into the game, you pick a weapon, you shoot your enemy, and that's pretty easy. And so. Or actually, for Dota it doesn't apply, but Dota was back when then Warcraft.
It was more an old school game, yeah.
Yeah, it's more of an old school game, and I think there's a lot of games that surpass League of Legends in terms of like.
World of Tanks, it's really big in Russia, right?
That's World of Tanks. Then even PUBG in Russia is, I think, quite big because I don't know why, but people like realistic shooters here, and that's pretty big.
Okay.
So
yeah, again,
like...
Loco. Come on, if you're like young guys playing a game, what game are we gonna play? Should we play Counter-Strike? It's like all machine guns and stuff, sniper scope. Oh, it's PUBG out though. You can use guns and drive vehicles and stuff. You want to play League of Legends again? Remember, fucking Loco. Oh my god, I'm a little fucking pixie. Like, who's gonna play that game? Come on.
All three of us play it. All three of us play it.
There's actually a big argument. It used to be a big argument between like LoL and Dota players about what game is better in Russian community, and the biggest reason, like not biggest argument of Dota players was like, your game is so childish, like how can you play it? It's so anime. Why do you even like bother? It's nothing. It's not competitive. Why? Like Dota is so much like for real men, you know, and. Yeah, that's what people think here. Like they play games for real men, mostly.
Okay. Right. So, one thing I have to ask you about, right? Because, like I alluded to, if someone followed the Russian league, okay, they knew that you guys were still playing. Maybe people saw in the past. Obviously, people kind of started to care about the Russian region when the ANX team had that run at Worlds, where they had all these amazing upsets, and some of them obviously ended up playing for Gambit. But people will forget that at this World Championship, the one that was like 2 months ago. There's a team that got the best result ever for North America called Cloud9. They made it all the way to the semi-finals. They even beat a Korean team. But if a certain team called Gambit Gaming had won Game 5 of the wildcard, whatever it is called, match, there wouldn't even be a Cloud9. There wouldn't be no NA. You guys almost beat them, right?
Almost. That's the key. That's the key.
You almost ruined all NA dreams again. It would have been a perfect sort of like...
Yeah, but
like bookend to the story.
If we would win, they wouldn't know what dream we ruined, so not a big deal.
True. I guess you're right. Yeah, that's true.
You know, if it would be in quarterfinals, yeah, that would be delicious. But
sure.
So
I mean, Reaper would probably be fired right now, but
Diamond, are you? So it might seem like a rude question, but how good are you still, like comparatively? Like, in Russia, do you just play on Russian servers? Are you able to compare yourself to other like European players, like by playing on EU West or anything like that? Do you scrim the European teams?
I'm only playing on European server.
Okay.
Like I'm considering to play in Russia just with friends, you know, normal games or maybe Arabs.
Okay. What rank are you?
Where?
Are you in Challenger in the EU West?
Oh, right now? No, I didn't play for such a long time. After the Worlds finished, I took like a really huge break, the biggest in my life, maybe 2 or 3 months.
What's your normal rank? Do you get into Challenger if you play?
I'm usually 800 points.
Okay. That's really high.
Because just for context, you know, Loco also played in season 2 and was a professional, and he's hard stock in Diamond 4, I think it is.
Diamond 3.
Okay, my mistake.
I was Masters last split. I'm gonna be Challengers this split. If I'm gonna fucking flame the shit out of you when I hit Challenger.
So basically, a player whose name even is Diamond he's already in Challenger. You know, you're looking for someone to fucking boost you out of Diamond.
His full-time job is playing League of Legends. Diamond. Anyways, so there was a time in the world where you were unequivocally the best jungler in the world. Where would you place yourself now?
Right now,
Yeah.
nowhere because I didn't play for so long.
Okay.
During Worlds,
Mm-hmm.
I would place myself maybe in like top 20 junglers, maybe.
Okay.
Okay, that's
But
very reasonable.
yeah, I don't think I'm like the best or something like that because the results show that I'm not the best, and I actually rate myself, I think, quite well because I criticize myself
Mm-hmm.
like really a lot. I actually struggle not to criticize myself because it ruins my practice sometimes. But
Mm-hmm.
because criticize myself so much and compare myself to others, I feel like I'm trying to be the best, but there are very mm, very few patches that I feel like I'm in like top 5 or top 10 junglers. And so for this year, I will try to get mm, at least get myself into feeling that I'm like top 10 or top 5 junglers in the world. And
Okay.
so I need to practice hard. And also, there's my skill is probably degrading over time because during season 5 I could like hold 1,200 points, and now I only can hold easily like 800. So maybe I'm degrading a bit, but that's why I want to prove to myself that I'm still good by reaching high challenger again.
What do you mean by degrading? So, like, there's this whole theory, like, you can't be an esports pro once you're past 25. Like, you're too old, your reflexes are too slow. Where, I mean, in games like football and basketball, like, your prime starts at somewhere like 26 or 27. Like, you haven't even hit your prime yet in, like, those games. And those games are much more physical than something like League of Legends would be. Do you think, like, that's true, like, as people get older? And, I mean, you're saying it, like, your skills are degrading. Like, what's your view on age in gaming, and like what do you mean by your skills are degrading?
Um, I think the biggest, like, how to say, why the player becomes good or not is decided by how much time he put in practice and also how much does he love the game. And
Mm.
so maybe you can put as much time as before or even more, but if
Mm.
you don't love the game as much as you used to love it, then it takes the, what's the word, uh,
It's
like it's
harder. Need more motivation to do it.
uh, you need to motivate yourself to do it
Mm.
basically, and when you don't have motivation you're going to play worse, and if you don't have motivation for every day of your life, then after some rough days where you will lose maybe eight games out of 10, you
Mm.
will, instead of be learning, you will just be devastated by those losses,
Mm.
and you will not embrace the love to the game anymore. And so uh, the more you play the game, the less you tend to love it.
Mm.
And after some time, it takes a lot of effort uh, to try to still be the best.
Mm.
I would actually, this is the limit of my English knowledge in Russian.
You're
I
doing a
will
good job, mate. You're doing a good job.
describe it much better, but it's basically
Absolutely
you need
хорошо.
to kind of like force yourself to do this, and because you force yourself and not doing it naturally, then that's why it becomes less good what
Mm.
you're doing.
Okay.
And there's a good military word for like forcing yourself to do something. But
Discipline.
Discipline.
yeah, discipline. You need to
Yeah.
have like a really good discipline when your love to the game falls off, and not everyone can hold this discipline throughout the whole year. Maybe if the tournaments would be like rather split, like it used to be,
Mm-hmm.
like you play one tournament, you practice like 1 month for one tournament, then there's a break and a huge patch, and then you practice again for another tournament, then maybe the older players would like shine from time to time because
Mm.
mm, it's easier to discipline yourself for 1 month than it
Mm.
is
Yeah.
for half a year or maybe even more. Like for example,
Sure.
I'm starting to play in like early January,
Mm.
and I play until we lose the at World. So it's like at least 9 or 10 months straight. So there's a lot of discipline if you don't like the game. And yeah, basically I'm trying to both like encourage myself to love the game as as the times goes on because the love falls, and also I'm trying to learn how to be more disciplined, so when I don't love the game I at least have enough discipline to like to practice to have a good practice.
Yeah,
That's why I
okay.
think people cannot, like, it's really hard for people to be a long-term professional player in any of the game. But maybe in sports it's different. I don't know.
I actually have a theory on this, Loco. So I actually
Okay.
addressed a little bit of that. I forget which show. It must have been one of the Worlds ones we did, because you once asked me like why in Counter-Strike, players played longer. So I know I addressed a bit of this, but I have an extra bit to add. So like one reason I think in CS:GO, for example, you have quite a lot of players actually who are like 28, 27. Like you wouldn't believe how many players in the top 10 are actually like over 25. It's a lot. And part of the reason why is like, first of all, like Diamond said there, if you were an older player, it would obviously help you a lot more if you could like take a month off or have a few weeks where you take it easy and then like, right, I'm going to go hard for these few weeks. I'm going to go practice hard for this tournament. That is the exact opposite of the LCS system. The LCS system is like, right, be good for like 2 months straight. And then after that, go to a tournament here and be good as well. Like if you don't do those things, you fail. Whereas actually a great example would be in CSGO, we still have like a really old school player called Forrest, a very famous player from Sweden, right? And he's literally been playing as a pro since 2005. I think he's 30 years old now.
Yeah.
And the key thing is, right, he's not as good as he used to be, but he's still pretty good, right? He's still maybe like 80% of what he used to be. And here's the key thing about him and his team. Is his team doesn't win the events. They don't usually even place like top 4. Usually they're like, sort of 5th to 8th or like they go out in the group stage. But the key thing is, because the circuit is you play so many different LAN tournaments, and because when he plays badly, you don't see him in the rest of the tournaments, you forget about it. What happens is when his team does badly, as long as they do decently at a tournament, like say every 2 months, they can still sort of like tell their org, like, we're still good, keep us on, we'll get better. And crucially, and this is the fucked up part, Forrest actually isn't as good anymore. But because when he does badly, his fanboys forget it. They wait until he has the one good game and they're like, he's back. He's still as good as he ever was. See, 30 years old, whipping these young guys' asses. What's age? Nothing but a number, baby. Like, and I'm always saying, like, what about all the other fucking games? They're like, shut up, hater. He's as good as he always was. Like, there's so many like angles to it that are so bullshit. And then the other angle, I think it's a very obvious one, is like Diamond says here. Like, what things would motivate you to keep playing when your skill drops off and when you're not as good anymore, you're not on top?
Money.
Well, if you're actually a sports star, yeah, getting paid like $20 million a year is a pretty good reason to go in, right? Also, the other angle I think is really misunderstood is, let's say you are like an old school legendary player for like an NFL team. Another reason why you wouldn't quit, right, if you could still play and it's still worth it, is because every person you ever meet is going to go, what the fuck? You quit doing that job. You're an idiot. Like, that's a fucking dream job. Playing League of Legends for a lot of people, not really a dream job, Like, it's pretty good if you can win. If you just grind in 12 hours, and there's the other angle, right? Compared to sports, if you're like a basketball player, okay, you come in, you practice for 2 hours. If you're Kobe Bryant or something, yeah, you stay. If you're a normal player, you go home. That's it. You have the day off, game days and 2 days, or 1 day, whatever. If in League of Legends, you might not have to practice 15 hours a day, but you know that some dude who's your rival's practicing 14 or 15 hours a day. And so it's understandable. Yeah. Totally understandable. I get it.
Dude, if Asians were good at sports, then it would be different.
I know. But this way, well, here's the thing, Loco. They are obviously. Think logically. What are the sports Asians are the best at?
Swimming.
Go, which involves only moving a fucking thing like that, no physical effort.
Yeah.
Ping pong, which is like you just need your wrist to be decent. No one's hitting like a 200-mile shot. It's not like tennis or something. And as you say, yeah, it's all the sports that aren't like super physical. But if it's a sport where it's got technique and you can grind it, just like esport, it's just fucking sick at that.
Yeah. Yeah, so like sports stars don't have that problem. There's some Asian kid doing this better than me and practicing 15 hours a month, and because they don't have the body to do it.
Yeah.
Oh, one thing.
I mean, obviously, Loco meant that as like when he was saying like me, he meant like as a concept there. He was putting himself in that place. Obviously, there's thousands of Asian people doing League of Legends better than Loco right now. He didn't mean it literally.
So, anyways, one thing I do want to touch on about motivation versus discipline is, Weldon actually taught me this. You're gonna love it. So motivation is something that fluctuates day to day. Like some days you're gonna wake up really, really motivated, wanting to play League of Legends. Someday you're not gonna wake up very motivated. If you play off of motivation, then you're gonna have very sporadic practice, and it's gonna depend on your mood, and it's gonna depend on day to day. Discipline is something you can control and something you can build almost like a muscle. So on the days where you are feeling shitty and you don't want to practice, that's where discipline really kicks in, and that's why players with good discipline can consistently be good and consistently put into practice, where players without discipline will be good when they are motivated, when it is game time, when it is like before like the scrims or they are doing well, when all the stars line up, they will do well. But that's why discipline is so much more important than motivation.
Sure. I can see the logic. Thing is, though, what Loco doesn't know, because I'm actually an expert, you know, there's a few things in life I know a lot about. It's like Counter-Strike, Quake,
flaming people.
Like, that's just something I do on the side. That's like breathing, mate.
That's a hobby.
Physical response, yeah. No. And the third thing I know is I know a lot about Weldon Green. So actually, the way that Weldon used to come up with all these genius concepts, right, is he'd go out with the players and he'd go to a Chinese restaurant and they'd all have food, you know, eating noodles, like sweet and sour chicken. And at the end, right, he'd open his fortune cookie, right? And in the fortune cookie, it would say, like, if at first you don't succeed, try again. And Weldon would go, see, the thing is, guys, success is about consistency. It's about multiple. You got to try. And if you don't, listen, sometimes you won't win the first time. But I tell you what, you keep trying, eventually you could win. And then they'd go, Weldon, can you give us your address again so we can back that Brinks truck up to your house and put the $40,000 a month in there? And he's like, yeah, sure. See me later, guys. Anyway, I need to go to my special room now where I balance the tincture of the oil to see if it's can heal, if the healing properties are there. In fact, actually, Weldon would have been a really great League of Legends player back in Season 2 and Season 3 because he fucking loves those pots, doesn't he? Those potions. You know what I mean? Fucking amazing AD carry in lane, right? So... Anyway, let's get back to the topic.
Diamond, what do you think about psychology coaches? What's like Russian point of view and like what's your personal point of view on like psychology coaches?
Do they have like sports psychologists in Russia? Diamond, is that a thing?
We don't have for two reasons. First, there's not enough money that teams have, and it was even like cut on this year. So we don't really have money for additional stuff, and especially psychologists. And also there are no. It's really hard to find a good esports psychologist. You could find some like sports psychologists. I'm not even sure if they would be interested into like working with the team playing some esports, because in Russia it's even more of a problem of recognizing esports. Older people they think it's just like kid games, you know, it's not serious. So that's a big problem. But the new generations think of it differently. And so in a couple of generations, I think it will change, maybe in one or two, and it's really good. But so far, there's a lot of people that are like 40 years plus, and they don't think esports is anything. And if it did, they don't even know if it exists, you know. And so it would be hard to get a good psychologist. And like really good psychologists, they start to like get enough knowledge, I think, by maybe 35 years old or something like that. And those guys might not even know what games are, so it would be hard to introduce them into gaming. But other than that, we just don't have enough money. But my own stance on this issue is that the psychologists would really help people to like stick together, to understand their problems, to understand like what you're saying about discipline and other stuff, like Weldon is saying. I watched a lot of his work and learned a bit from him too. People are saying that motivation can fall off and that you need to keep up the discipline. I don't really agree with it like fully. I think both of those things are important, and if you lack one thing, you need to have the other, and that's basically like it. You can have 100% of motivation like 24/7. That's how I used to work. I had a decent discipline, but I didn't need to use it when I left the game. Basically, I was just like playing the game because I loved it. Then I slept when I wanted to play the game again, and there was no time when I was like, I didn't play so good today. Maybe I don't play. That wasn't like that. But after I started like disliking this game, especially like in Season 4, Season 5, when Jungler was basically a dog of the team, I need to have a discipline. So I didn't have the motivation, but I needed to have a discipline. And so if you have one of those things, that's already enough. And psychologists could help to work with both of those things for the players, and also cure some mental problems that players have, because when you're playing like 14 hours a day, 9 months straight, you might have some mental problems actually.
Oh, one other thing I did want to ask is, because you're a jungler, right? So jungle's actually the one of the shittiest roles to main, in my opinion, especially as an old school player, because it's the one role that keeps changing over and over again. Like, what's your point of view on like all the changes throughout the years on jungle? Like, do you feel like kind of unfair and like, I guess like punished by Riot for making a role that's like constantly changing every year compared to the other roles, which are at least a little bit more stable? They do change, but definitely not as much as jungle.
I love changes. That's why I don't hate Riot for changes, because you know what I said about the season 2. You could innovate so much because people don't know anything about the game, and that's
Mm.
when the game is new. And the game basically becomes new when they make some big changes. And so it's actually, maybe it's a little bit tiring when those like really big changes happens too often. For example, like when every year jungle was changing so much, I actually started like my mind started to work not properly with it. Uh, I come to like really big patch, and
Mhm.
I want to learn it, and I want to become a really good player on,
Mhm.
on this like really big new patch. And then I learn it, and then there's another big patch comes up, and then my mind tells me like, dude, but what if after this big patch you will adapt to it in 1 month? In
Mhm.
1 month, what if another like really huge patch will come out in 1 month and will change everything?
Mhm.
Everything what you did will go to shit. So maybe you need to like chill a bit, and so you're not even sure if the patch is going to stay, and if your knowledge that you acquire during this patch is going to like uh, help you in the future, and not in those like 10, maybe 4 weeks of screams. And
Mhm.
so um, that's the only thing that I dislike about changes. But other than that, the changes I always welcome them if they are the good ones. For example, like uh, I don't think jungle right now is a bad role. I really like it, but
Mhm.
I used to hate the jungle in season 5 and season 4 and season 6,
Mhm.
because after the early game, jungler was basically like, it was exceptionally useless. I don't know. It like I I I I have this comparison. You know, when there was a meta when relay was buffed super hard and had like 40% slow, and there was like a world championship with Cassiopeias, Victors, and some other disgusting champions like that. And you could only play like Lee Sin and Olaf in this tournament because they were good. And 20 minutes into the game, when mid laner builds Relies and is 2 levels ahead of you just because he is mid laner and you're the jungler,
Mhm.
it basically would take 2 or 2.5 listens to beat one Victor, I think. And that's what that's why I hated the game
That's
basically. But right now it's not as bad as it used to be, so
Mhm.
I'm kind of fine with being like 2 levels down but still able to like CC or do some damage, you know.
Of course you're happy right now. Jungle's overpowered, right? Nerfing jungle,
No, they're
and
not.
you really don't think you think. How do you really don't think jungle's overpowered right now? There, it's one
No,
of
I don't
the.
think.
Okay, well, let me make an argument for it. I think early game jungles have way too much control, and ganking right now is way too powerful. Like you barely lose any XP from ganking, and there's so much catch-up experience. What if you do fall behind? I think jungle role is you're strong early, you're incentivized to gank, and when your gank goes badly, like you have a very easy way of catching up.
Yeah, if you watch it from this perspective, yes, the jungle is kind of like overpowered when you're wasting like 30 minutes sitting in the bush and you still get a kill, or maybe 1 minute still
Mm-hmm.
get a kill. You can go back to your jungle, farm 2 roads, and then you will be equal to the enemy jungle,
Mm-hmm.
and then the game will continue, like, and you will be good and stuff
like
like that. But
basically in that meta diamond, you can't do what Diamondprox did. You can't counter jungle because the other guy just gets the XP anyway. It's
no.
kind of
But
bullshit, right?
the thing is, you need to compare yourself
Mm-hmm.
not to the enemy laners. That if laner is 0-5, he will never come back into the game. That's almost
Mm-hmm.
true. But
Okay.
if jungler is 0-5, people believe that he can come back into the game. But while he will be trying to come back into the game, the enemy 5-0 jungler will snowball the game so hard
Mm-hmm.
that it's actually not possible to play anymore. So when you compare jungler to jungler, then mm your action actually matter a lot. And if you make one small mistake as a jungler, the other jungler might take this advantage and snowball the game. And also, I think the almost any other role has a really huge impact onto the games. And on different elos, there is like a different impact. for example, like bot lane. If they're playing together, if they're playing on high ranked, I think probably duo bot lane is the strongest duo that can happen in the game. Because when they get matched against players that are not together, they can just like get 10-0, and it's for jungler it's not that easy to gank on high elo. For example, I think on Diamond and maybe Master, jungler is probably the strongest role, maybe with mid laners, but as higher you go, as more important becomes the bot lane. And about top lane, it's really questionable. Sometimes they're like very important when there's like Jace can be played and he's really good. Then this champion can solo snowball the game. But when there's like only Maokai, Sorens, and stuff like that are being played, or even Urgot cannot, or actually Urgot can kind of snowball the game. But it really depends on what champions are playing on top lane about how hard can they carry the game. And I think junglers right now, on some elo, they're the best. On some elos, there are other more important roles that can do more than jungler.
When you said, when we had the discussion earlier about in season 2, you know, there was all this room for creativity, you could be very innovative, you could try something new that no one's seen before, and it might even take a few pro matches before people even figure out what you're doing, right? Is there any of that still exists now? Like, for example, do you still ever play like off-meta champions that other people don't play? Have you come up with any unique builds in the last year or two? Have you done anything? Have you been able to do any of the old school stuff you did in the modern day?
I think Riot actually did an amazing job of allowing people to innovate some stuff. Maybe not in terms of picks, but in terms of picks too. You can actually choose some champions that were not like being used all. For example, like Xinjiao. I always, like a year ago, when he was changed, reworked, I felt that this champion is broken. But then in scrims in Europe, I was like not proven, but I was told by enemy teams, by my teammates, that this champion is complete garbage, and I abandoned him. But I still loved him, and I felt he is good. And only China was playing Xinjiao throughout the year. And then after a couple of nerfs, not buffs, Xinjiao becomes one of the strongest champions during the Worlds. And that's not because he was like super weak before that, just because people didn't know how to play him and in what team compositions he is good. So there are a lot of stuff that you can like be different from others and be better than others. For example, there was a champion called Tali in jungle, and she was really strong. And when I play her, there's an item called Morellonomicon, and its upgrade costs 1,500 gold, and it gives minus heal and some stats. And so, as playing this item, I see like every mid laner, every jungler on Talia, everyone just straight up upgrades Oblivion Orb into this item. But I question like, why do they do that? And then I found out that it's actually not always that beneficial to upgrade this item. It's
stay on Oblivion Orb,
yeah, you stay on Oblivion Orb, and if there's like shit ton of tanks in enemy team, you better rush your Void stuff as fast as possible. But people just don't do that. Like every pro jungler building this Parallelonomicon no matter what, even if there's like no heal to diminish. So there's a lot of things you can be better than someone in something.
Okay. So, by the way, Loco, what he's saying now is actually a perfect example of why I actually said when I did the interview with him, when he could speak English, it was really good, was because the other thing about Diamondprox is it totally makes sense in his career how he played, because as he described there, he's not someone who just got, like, as he was saying about the junglers who are doing something without thinking about it. That's because they don't know why they're doing it. They just copied it off someone who's really sick. They were like, right, the best junglers, let's look at like UGG. Oh, they're all doing this build. You know, I saw Score do it in a game, but they don't know why they're doing that. Whereas if you notice, Diamondprox has to actually have the theory behind it. He has to understand, otherwise he's not just going to do it for no reason.
So the Diamondprox, what he said regarding Oblivion Orb is actually 100% true. Oblivion Orb is very efficient at 1,500 gold, and like staying on it is a much bigger power spike than upgrading. Why so many people upgrade it is, so Riot has like this rule, items become more efficient as you invest more gold into it. Like completed items are more gold efficient than parts. So obviously like upgrading items should be more gold efficient. That's like the Riot rule. And
in theory, yeah.
In theory. Yeah. But Oblivion Orb doesn't follow that rule, and it's more efficient as is, and you're just paying for pure stats and Grievous Wound, the one that cuts healing. So a lot of times it's better to stay on it. So yeah, it's something that a lot of mid laners picked up on, and a lot of people that do like number crunching for player builds have picked up on, and it's interesting to hear like him pick up on it like separately.
By the way, since I know at some point we're going to do like some viewer questions and stuff, that's another thing about Diamondprox that once I found his English was good, is very interesting, is if you want to know anything about the jungle, he can give you all the reasons as to why he thinks something. So do you have anything about jungle that's interesting to you, Loco?
Jungle that's interesting to me. What do you think of like the Scuttle Crab meta? Like, I know like the jungle strength wise you're very happy about it, but do you like the jungle meta in itself? Like, I feel like jungle got very simplified in a way where all the paths are somewhat very obvious, and a lot of it revolves around Scuttle Crabs and the big buffs, and it's not so much like old school jungle I felt was like very chess. You have to try and kind of think what the enemy jungle is doing, and you kind of have to play around that. Right now where it's just in a lot of ways very simplified compared to before.
That's a hard question, actually. I kind of like the Scuttle Crab itself because, but not the. Okay, first of all, I think the Scuttle Crab itself is really good because he gives the most gold after some point than any other jungle camp, except maybe golems, and so it's worth fighting for, and it spawns pretty frequently, so you always have a chance to do something instead of ganking and like sitting in the bush for 1 minute. It's really cool for junglers to always have an objective to fight for, and that's why changes for Dragon and Herald and Scuttle Crabs are so good. But I'm not sure if I like that the first Scuttle Crab respawns as like 2 Scuttle Crabs, because right now, if you don't overthink the enemy jungle like really hard, then it's really easy to it's really easy as a jungler to make it so every jungler gets half of the jungle farmed, even if you're a weaker player or have a weaker champion, just because you place a ward. If enemy doesn't know there's a ward and he goes to one crop, you see it, you go to the other crop, and then you split them up and then you farm equally. But it still can be abused by good players, but probably it would be better if only one Scuttle Crab would be spawned like early on in the game. So people would actually have to like adapt, and it would be actually a really good objective to fight for. Because right now, and also there are roads that can even ignore Scuttle Crabs. Scuttle Crabs is not the most efficient way to farm. For example, if the enemy jungler will straight up farm 6 camps and you will go like red buff, scuttle, blue buff, then you're not going to be ahead of him. If he backs, if he recalls, buys, and comes back and invades your jungle, you're probably going to lose some camps even. So yeah, that's kind of a double-edged sword. But I like the changes, and maybe they can like improve on those things, so there will be more skirmishes between junglers.
Okay. Right, are we going to do the viewer questions?
Yeah,
I've got one last thing to ask him.
Okay.
One last thing to ask you, Diamondprox. Since, as I alluded to earlier in the episode, it was well known that you and Darian were good friends and you got along very well. Whatever happened to Darian? Is he still around anywhere? Do you ever talk to him? Does he still play League?
I don't know right now. I told to him, I think, half a year ago. From time to time, like I'm checking out on him and Genja, asking like, what are you doing, guys, and how's life? And sometimes from time to time he even streams some games like Mortal Kombat and stuff like that. So
Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
He likes a lot of different games, and that's actually a really interesting thing about him. I think League of Legends was his probably first or second game that he ever played, if I'm not mistaken. So
okay,
yeah, he's playing computer games and I don't know, chilling out with friends. But maybe something changed in the last half a year. And Genja, I don't know, he's a very hidden person. He doesn't tell what is happening. He only tells what he wants people to know about him, so he doesn't tell me anything.
You know, by the way, I don't know if you're aware of this, Loco, but you know that famous meme people made? I think it was it was after Season 3 Worlds, the one where Gambit went and they had Voidal instead of Edward. And if you remember, that was the one where Doublelift like criticized Genja, his build on...
Corki, or Kog'Maw or Corki for Trinity building early.
Yeah, it was Corki. And the thing was,
No, it's Kog'Maw Trinity. It's Kog'Maw
Yes,
Trinity.
that's right. I got it wrong way
Yeah.
around. It was Kog'Maw, as you said, yes. And obviously, if you remember, the meme was about a year later, they buffed the Trinity Force.
Yeah.
Not directly, but by nerfing other items, basically, and so it did become the build. And you know the meme everyone made was that Genji's the Time Lord, right?
Yeah.
This is what people might not know because he hasn't played in competitive since then, right? Which is that he actually did the Time Lord thing again. Because when he came up like 2 years ago or something, people just found his solo queue account because, you know, it was just called like Genji 007, like whatever his name was in the game. And people found, and he was only in like, you know, Masters or something, but he was grinding loads of games. But all he would play every game, and are you ready? Every role, he would pick Corki and he would build Frozen Heart or something ridiculous like that. Like he would build like an item that isn't even, he would, what did he say?
Randuin's.
Randuin's Omen, rather. He was building this even though he's AD carry Loco. And what's mad is, obviously, eventually, like, there was, like, a mad meta in, like, Season 6 or something where people did occasionally build, obviously, like remember Wild Turtle in Immortals? Sometimes he did build actual, like, tank or healing items, you know, for, like, but, like, obviously, again, it's the same thing. It's only a meme. He wasn't really a Time Lord. Like, actually, his build was trash. But it's just the idea that, like, whatever his idea was eventually did become part of the game. It was pretty sick.
Yeah. So, Diamond, one thing people are dying to ask is there any chance we would? That's a big question.
Loco, I was known as someone in my life who was not very, like, socially acclimated, you know. I didn't always know how to make small talk. Like, Loco's version of, like, keeping someone going in a conversation, like, right, that's it. Okay. So,
oh my God! The random thing.
Nothing. No response.
Okay.
No human fucking warmth or something. Can I treat me like an animal, Loco? I'm not it's a fucking flame dildo for you to use anytime you feel bored.
So
ironically, I would like a flame dildo, but that's a separate topic.
So the random Frozen Heart stuff, I fucking hate that meme, the Time Lord meme, because like people would bring that shit up. People would bring that shit up, and like whenever people would use inefficient builds, like I would show them the math for it, and then later on when the items would change, and then players would be like, "Look, Loco, this build was good. I told you." And it's like it's a different situation.
Right. You mean when people really think it?
And it would annoy the shit out of me. So like for this one, it was just me like ignoring the subject because I think it's a fucking stupid subject. And Turtle's one of the players where I had arguments about build, so I had only negative things to add there. So I didn't want to say anything. Okay.
All I'm gonna say is, well, Turtle is a AD carry who won a lot of championships domestically.
Whenever I saw the AD carry, except Genji building something like tanky items, it was already like very bad. I saw some Korean Chinese players on World Championship probably building something like Randuin's last items against like full AD team comp, and it was so bad. So don't try to do it if you're not Genji.
Exactly. Genji is a trained professional. Do not attempt at home any of the things you see in his build path on op.gg.
I'll give you guys like a very simple math. So AD carry items by themselves are very not gold efficient, and when they work together, they're very gold efficient. Like the one crit item by itself sucks. 2 crit items on top of Infinity Edge, all 3 of them work really well together and they become gold efficient. And you want to keep building on that efficiency by getting more flat AD or or you get one very like cheap defensive item like Stopwatch or QSS, but it's very inefficient to build tank items on AD carry and you start falling off. So anyways, on to your question. Diamondprox, is there any chance of seeing you in LEC in the future?
Hopefully.
Hopefully?
Yeah, I like to play in Gambit, and so far, like, the team, the players that we have, and the coach satisfies me. But if something changes, I would like to be a part of LEC, but it will be dependent not only on me, but on the teams if they would want me, and on the effort the teams are willing to like make to get me a working visa, because it's not that easy. But if you
think it has changed though? Has it become possible now compared to the old days to get the visa?
I mean, if you have a lot of money, everything is possible. And back then, nobody had enough money.
Everyone out there in the audience all agree that we're all going to buy a lottery ticket every single week, and whoever wins has to make a team in the LEC and buy Diamondprox and go through Pepper, right? And maybe Alex Sitch if he still wants to play, but I think he's NA now with his kid or whatever, so maybe not. Everyone.
Well, this wasn't a viewer question, but it's something I wanted to ask that I forgot. Who are some junglers you have a lot of respect for, like throughout the years? Like, who do you think was like really good?
Ambition. I have a lot of respect for him because he actually embraced being a dog of the team, I think, as a jungler. Because even throughout the years that where I hated the game, because as a jungler you couldn't actually I couldn't mentally hold to play this role anymore, he was actually one of the best junglers in the world, and he still played those listens and Olafs that are like falling off super hard, and he still won world. So this guy has my biggest respect out of all the junglers, I think. And other than him, Broxa has a lot of respect of me, because when he was playing in Challengers scene, he was just, you know, a usual European jungler, kind of like stable, not doing anything crazy, and his team wasn't that good ever. But when he got to Fnatic, something like really clicked in him, and right now he's not only a stable, like a really stable jungler, but he can make plays, and he can make aggressive plays, and that's what led Fnatic to a final of Worlds, I think. And so I have really a lot of respect to him. There are a lot more junglers that I have respect to, but I just can't think of, of them right now.
Ambition's someone that a lot of, like, I would say cocky junglers respect. Like Meteos, when I was talking to him personally, he said, yeah, I really respect how Ambition plays, and I really respect Ambition as a player. Like, I think not just for his achievement, like the amount of time he was good, and like how he plays is something I think a lot of old school and youth school players appreciate a lot. Oh, Dorian, actually, it's a topic that I completely forgot to mention during the regular show also, but do you want to talk a little bit about the BBQ Malice situation? Because we are a live show. We can talk about like recent topics and stuff.
Yeah, we can do this if you want. So we'll add a little bit extra at the end so people can start ask the questions or whatever. So do you want to give a basic breakdown of what happened?
So there's this jungler named Malice. He plays for Team Barbecue, LS's team. And when he played in Korean solo queue, apparently there were comments that he made racist remarks. I'm not sure how true they were. That's just a rumor.
I saw some that looked like they were. Like there was some. Like here's the thing. Just to give people the context here, because early on, it's like any story. You only first of all get like 2 screenshots, and then everyone thinks that's the whole story. Like some later screenshots did come out where he basically did literally say like, "Go pick Rice, Asian guy," or like, "You are subhuman" or something. So like, it's pretty hard to argue that that's not in some way racially invective.
Yeah, I mean, and also when you play on a foreign server, like if you want to insult people, like Khan infamously like Chinese dogs or like 4 Chinese can't win, like you go for like the racial remarks. So
of course, yeah.
Anyways, after that he's cleaned up his behavior. There's been some spotty spots, but it's been coming up, and then a lot of Korean fans and players included, Untara and Ruler, flamed Malice, and they're like, this guy shouldn't be on a professional team. Like this guy's so rude, blah blah blah. And then LS defended him on Twitter, saying like he's changed his behavior, and a lot of BBQ, I think it was like a I forgot what it was, but a BBQ management person also defended him. And then after that, there was a huge Korean fan backlash. I'm not sure how much of it LS saw, but it was on DC Gallery, it was on Mbin, it was on a lot of Korean websites where there was a lot of like flame towards Malice and LS. And recently today, I think like 8 hours ago, or actually it should have been something like more like 12 hours ago, 13 hours ago, BBQ from their official English Twitter put out an apology with LS's apology statement included in it. So I guess like that's the situation, and there's still a lot of, I would say, fire, and a lot of the fire's still going from the Korean community even after the apology statement. A lot of fans have said they don't feel it's genuine. I'm not sure if anything bigger is going to come out of this, but it is something that happened. And yeah, I kind of do want to talk about the live topics that are going on.
Okay. Like the problem with this topic, like we addressed already, is like, it's like, I mean, if there's already more screenshots coming out, who knows, there might be even more. We don't really know what these players have seen and said, so we're having to go off the limited information we have. And when you look at the stories that both sides are telling, like I noticed the LS side of the things where they're trying to defend Malice, they haven't really defended him. Like it's not like they're taking what he said and say, well, it wasn't that bad, or here's the explanation. They've gone on the attack as their defense, and their approach is like, oh, you're just doing this because we're not Korean, and you're just like hating on it, and you're the racist ones as well. Like it's because we're white and we're in Korea. Which like, here's the thing, there's a little bit of that, I think. Like I think people are definitely going harder because the idea is like, if you're going to be in Korea, you should learn the Korean rules and follow our etiquette. You can't just give a say, well, fuck it, I'm from Europe, who gives a fuck, right? So I kind of get that angle. I get both angles on that. Like I think it probably is an overblown story, but like some of the stuff he was saying, that's the problem. You actually nailed it, Loco. I'm surprised that you actually had that angle up, because I don't know this person, so I can't say if he is racist or if he has crazy opinions. I only know what I saw there, but like you said, if someone is in an environment where everyone else is different from them and they're from a total outsider, pretty much the default way, if you feel like they're fucking with you and you want to say something really hurtful, the most obvious thing to say, since you're not one of their race, so obviously you wouldn't say something about your own race, is to diss the race or the country or whatever the background is, you know. Like, I think I've told this story before. I don't know on what shows. Like, I definitely don't go down the racial angle. But I've told this story before. In any esports game I play, obviously I play on Mad Smurf accounts. I don't ever use my name. You'll never find Thorin playing like that. So if you see a Thorin, it ain't me. But anytime I play on my secret account, so by the way, I'm shit here, so don't worry, I'm in the bottom ranks. Obviously, everyone's flaming all day long in League and CS. And I've told this story before. There's two ways it goes. In CSGO, the problem in CSGO is we have voice comms. You don't type to each other, you voice comm, right? And so if your teammates fuck with you in CSGO, I can't speak because the second I speak Loco, it doesn't matter even if I'm in a random matchmaking game, people go, is that Thorin? You sound like Thorin. So I can't speak it. So what I do, and it's a shame Diamond's here because I'm going to sound really terrible when I do it, but I fake a Russian accent because the people in CSGO that everyone hates by default is Russians, right? Because if you get thrown in a game and there's a Russian who barely speaks English, everyone gets tilted like, oh, he's not going to be able to communicate, you know. And obviously it's famous, so I always just go like, you fucking bitch, I fuck you bitch. I just speak like that, right? So I get to say anything I want. And the key thing I do in both these games is if people fuck with me, and I can tell by like their name or their accent, say they're from Spain or whatever, I just start bringing up random stuff from history where like their country got shit on or like lost a war or something, or like, this is why your fucking economy's trash, you know, like idiots like you don't even know how to buy in the fucking game properly. Not a build path you down, you know, like just go fucking ham on that shit. And so I can't lie, it's a very good way to get under people's skin, Local. The problem is, especially if you're in the public eye, don't go the racial angle. Like, no one's going to even... There's no excuse that you can give that anyone's going to care about. They're just going to think you're racist, unfortunately.
And the thing is, I don't even think he's racist. Like, he probably isn't even racist. Like, he just wanted... As you said, he just wanted to flame back, and he wanted to go for, like, a hurtful angle. So, I'm in Korea, so whatever. Let's use, like, racial terms. So, I think a lot of people that use N-word or that say stuff like they're not like racially driven. Like, it's not like they're secretly going to KKK meetings. It's they want to hurt black people, they want to hurt Asian people, they want to hurt Latina people, so they say stuff like M-word because they know like, hey, this is gonna hurt you, and that's just what they're trying to do. So
No, the reason I'm laughing, Loco, is because you censored yourself from saying the N-word, because you know if you say that, you're getting in trouble. Why are you saying the one with the C? Why just say a word that people say about Chinese people?
I didn't know.
I know you didn't think of that one.
I didn't think that one, like, it's like a really hugely, like, negative culture.
I don't know about that.
Okay.
I don't know about that. I'd just stay away from it anyway.
Well, we're not going to get...
The thing is, Loco, I'm always trying to get fucking sponsors.
Shut the fuck up! Fuck you!
Sponsor. And they're like, do anyone on the show use racial slurs? And I said, well, I don't personally. Like, I never do that. But that Loco guy, you know, he's Korean. You know what he says about Koreans? They're a bit racist, you know. Listen, but and they just say, okay, well, if you just cut Loco and bring anyone in, we'll give you the money. I go, listen, I won't do that. He's already failed enough times in his life. I won't be the guy that pushes him over the edge. We have to make this time succeed. I won't be like on air. I won't be like CLG and TSM. I won't push him away. I'll embrace him. In that loving embrace, I'll change him.
All right, let's finish this topic so we can go back to it. But,
yeah.
I think from my perspective, I think Nick definitely shouldn't have gone on defensive, and like just as from a coaching role and like a lead role and like a public role, honestly, when your player fucks up or when you fuck up, even if it's unfair, you just have to say, I'm very sorry. This will never happen again. This was completely our fault. It is like, we were the irresponsible ones. It doesn't matter like what the other side did. It doesn't matter if the fan is irresponsible. Like, you just have to say, I'm very, very sorry. Especially in Korea. Doesn't matter. You just take all the bullshit in and you're like, I'm sorry.
Dude, here's what's sick. I've just realized, and the guy who we really needed to ask is in this chat, because if you remember, Diamond, there was a very famous story in season 2 where Moscow 5 flamed, said a bunch of mean things like, you know, I can't remember what it was, but they said some shit in a game when they lost, right? Like, fuck this country or something. And what they did, right? This is classic, because it's like you're saying, Loco. Remember what I always tell people? You don't have... Guys... You guys you're listening, you're interpreting what people say to you literally. So when they say to you, you have to apologize and show your remorse, you're interpreting that literally and thinking you have to actually change as a person, grow as a person, and become more loving. You don't have to do any of that. Just fake it. You're now an actor, and this is your new role in a Hollywood movie. You have to pretend. Just imagine whatever you need to. Like imagine that time, like you felt really bad because like you like accidentally took the jungler's red buff by accidentally last hitting when you were helping him. You know how you felt bad in that moment. Pretend that's what you feel now. And go, oh, I'm really sorry. You know, I fucked up. I shouldn't have done it. You know, and I should have done things differently. You guys, I regret it because the story is when they fucked up. Moscow 5 all came along on video and they all stood there in the most robotic fashion ever, like, we apologize for this. And the joke used to be that, like, some guy was off screen with, like, a machine gun, like, say that shit, say it now. Can you tell us anything about this, Diamond?
What kind of insight do you want to hear?
Were you forced to do the interview? Like, how was it? Or were you forced to do
the apology? Yeah. Did they make you say it? Did someone say you have to say it, no matter what?
So, yeah. You know, one of the first things that the owner of Moscow 5 told us when we came to the gaming house, that there's like a really big graveyard, very close to our apartment that we lived in, our house rather, and that if we're gonna do poorly, then that's what awaits us.
Oh my god.
Yeah, well, different cultures than that, yeah.
You cannot argue with like, serious Russian guys, and you have to apologize sometimes.
Exactly. Okay. Yep, that's actually something, by the way, I can confirm, Local, because like, okay, people, in my career is sort of part like a career of an esports journalist and a content creator and a guy who's trying to do great things for the game and cherish the legacy of the game. But it's also part world tour of me going around the world, upsetting different countries and then seeing how differently countries react. I'm learning a lot, actually. It's sort of like I'm learning culture firsthand. So I actually used to think that like the worst fans, I've always told people this, is Brazilians. They're just easily the worst because first of all, a lot of them are getting mad.
You're a racist, Torin!
It's not the race, it's just the country. And one of the main reasons they get upset is mainly because, first of all, some of them might not have amazing English, so they might misinterpret what you're saying. If you say a really nuanced thing, I think that guy's a bit overrated. They think he said he's bad or whatever. So they go super hard at you, right? And also, people obviously know there's another type of fan that, I mean, I won't say subhuman, but other people might. TSM fans, again, they worship a false god, Reginald. They believe that like NA should win worlds, which I think frankly, if you say that out loud, you should probably be committed to a mental asylum for a period of observation. But okay, they say these things, the craziest things, and I thought, right, it's just those people that get mad. And because I come from Quake and Counter-Strike, I knew a lot of the Russian players, so I actually thought, because like Diamond's alluded to here, Russians can be very harsh, like they're very blunt, with what they think, and if you think they're shit, they just say you shit. I thought, right, they can handle banter. They can handle it when you talk some shit. So in CSGO, I have talked a lot of shit on like CIS region, but only from the point of view of like not the top teams. But for example, in CSGO, they have their own qualifier to the World Championship just for the CIS region. And I always said, like, what the fuck? If you're supposed to be part of Europe and you should be in the European qualifier. And even though that's all I said, I was getting so flamed by Russians to the fact that eventually what I learned to do is it's actually brilliant when people flame you in another language. Because on Twitter, there's that option to translate. It uses Bing and it translates it. Just don't press that, and then you don't know what they're saying. So they're going off on you. Oh, you fucking piece of shit! Like you should come to Russia. I'll fuck you up. Just don't press the button. Don't press translate. And for all you know, you just in your brain go, I'm sure he was just saying I'm a lovely guy and probably misunderstand. Right, next guy. You scroll down. So don't worry, they go fucking ham in CIS region, mate. They go ham.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, one thing I learned was like not interacting with like trolls or people that rage at you is best. So I don't even play under Locodoco. I play under like numbers whenever I play solo queue, and then I mute all when I play. Like just not interacting with people a lot of times is like better for your sanity.
That's actually also, by the way, for legit a real good tip. Like I do the same in Counter-Strike. Even though Counter-Strike, by the way, is a game you can voice comm, so in theory it's better. If you play at a low level, the voice comms are going to be so bad anyway that like if you just mute everyone by default when you join the game or turn voice comm off, sure, your team might be messaging you like, hey, why aren't you responding? But like odds are they're going to do the same play anyway. So it actually helps to just not get mad. Like you don't get tilted because you don't see it, right?
All right.
It's a good idea, actually. I'd give that real advice.
So going back to Diamond, more questions oriented towards you. So people are asking about Alex Fish, obviously, and especially during the era when Alex Fish was one of the best mids, like Alex Fish, Froggen, XPK, like what'd you think of Alex Fish and how would you compare them to Peke and Froggen, like when all three of them were in their prime?
I think one of the reasons why Alex was one of the best or the best mid laners at some points, I think the most important one is that he's really smart. Like, he thinks about the game like really deeply, and that's he and Genja are basically the guys that I learned to look deeper in the game.
Mhm.
And so he looks very deep. He tries a lot of new stuff, like a lot of new stuff, and that's where his new champions come out. That's where AP mid lane mastery comes out. That's where like Kha'Zix's mid laner comes as soon as he's been changed, and so he innovated a lot, and that's why he had an edge over his opponents most of the time, and that's what I respect of from him. But also, he's probably one of the first shot callers in League of Legends. I don't know about other teams, basically, because you can only get an idea of how their shot calling works and stuff like that from what they're saying in interviews. But as far as I understood, most of European teams relied on one guy to shot call, or they were just doing some random stuff all over the place. And Alex was the leading voice in our game. So I think he's one of the first shot callers, and he is very innovative, and that's why I think he was one of the best. And during the early season, or during the early season 2, I think during the whole season 2 until Worlds, he was definitely the best. Like, there was no one who could stand a chance against him, because his mechanics were like even or better than other guys, and also he was like smarter than them. But in season 3, he, I don't know, sometimes probably struggled with mechanics, but he was still really smart and a good shot caller.
Okay. All right.
Next question. Because the problem is, Loco, I don't want to spend 20 minutes breaking Diamond's heart by explaining to him scientifically using a computer why Froggen was better. But so let's just leave it there. Let's not make it uncomfortable. Let's just be polite to the guest. We give him this one.
All right. Well,
wait
ahead,
a second.
Diamond.
Look,
Okay.
Torin, you say that you learn how to flame better and better the different cultures. How will you flame a Russian guy? So he would cry.
I know. Do you want to know how? I know the secret, mate.
Yeah.
The problem is, this is a dodgy topic and it's similar to what I told Loco on a past episode. So don't answer back. Don't answer about this part. Just listen to the joke, okay? Because it's too dangerous to answer. What I will tell you is this. In Russia and Eastern Europe, they also have a similar problem that I explained that they have in Korea, where they're not a big fan of gay people. So the angle that you go with Russian people, Diamond, to fuck with them is you go, oh, you know what, Diamond? You're just the sweetest little guy. Look at him, little shoshki. Look at him, his little cheeks. Oh, he's so cute. Oh, you go with that angle, and then they get a bit uncomfortable. What the fuck are you saying? And you go, tell you what, pretty good looking, that guy, isn't he? He's bloody. I don't know.
But what if they're fine with it?
Well, then let's see where this goes. Light a fire. Let's get a fucking romantic meal going. I'll ask you what was going on with fucking Bruiser Eve or whatever it was you played in the jungle. Next thing you know, beautiful friendship struck up, right?
So, I mean, speaking a little bit on that question, ignoring Thorin's whatever he was saying, how did you compare Froggen and Alex Fish? Like, do you think Froggen was better? Do you think Alex was better? Do you think you just worked better with Alex?
I think Froggen probably at some point became better mechanical player than Alex, but throughout the whole time, Alex was as I say, he was. I don't know how much Froggen shot called. Maybe they're equal shot callers, but Alex is definitely smarter about the game. But the only thing that Froggen has an edge over Alex, except his mechanics later on, is that he was playing this disgusting, most broken champion that should have been deleted from the game called Anivia. And so that's the only reason. One of the few things that he was better than Alex on. He was playing this dirty champion, and this champion is actually so broken that it can actually solo carry the game. Froggen was building some Varmox run, doing some disgusting position, and it still worked.
Oh, I will say, by the way, when he actually, it's a good thing he actually asked to have that little comment there, because what he clarified there is also the difference between being a teammate with someone. Because, you know, I always say when you judge players, it's kind of unfair, unfortunately, to throw in like shot calling and stuff, because no one really knows how much everyone's like. Everyone knows, okay, yeah, hi, and Alex you're doing it, but like that's the problem. You don't always know on some teams.
Mm-hmm.
So I would agree with him in that sense. Like if he acknowledges that at one point Froggen was better mechanically, well, obviously he was in a team with Alex, so he knows that Alex was an amazing leader, was getting everyone on the same page. Whereas actually, to answer his question there, if you go back to like season 2 and season 3, that was actually where one of the differences between CLG and Moscow 5 is Moscow 5 had the one leader, whereas CLG actually used to even say to me, like, we will never have a leader. Our team is all about like democracy. And, you know, in the game, we all just make calls and we figure out together like what to do. And the problem with that concept, obviously, is, you know, sometimes it works if you're all geniuses, but if you're in a bad situation, it's just people arguing or saying like, oh, should we do that? Oh, no, wait, don't do that. And so I don't think Froggen was actually shot calling at all at that time. So I in that sense, if he wants to talk about well-rounded player, he's probably got a good point.
This one's actually hilarious, and I have a story to go with it. So someone's asking about Leviathan, your previous coach on Gambit. So I have a story to tell. So do you remember the time when I talked about Leviathan doing the hive mind on, like, where he got a bunch of Twitter and Reddit analysts, and he just had a Skype hive mind group, and that's where I found Parse. So after that episode, Leviathan reached out to me on Twitter DMs, and then he started polite. He was like, Loco, I want you to apologize to me. I think what you said on the show was very untrue, and it hurts me. I thought we were friends. And I just ignored him because I just spoke the truth, and this guy's just, like, what is it, upset. And then,
was he not your friend, though? Were you not friendly with him?
I always thought he was crazy. I always thought he was a little bit stupid and crazy.
Okay, fair enough.
And then his messages kept getting worse and worse. He's like, dude, like, I fucking helped you once. Like, why are you doing this to me? Like, why are you shitting on me? Like, why are you shitting on me? Like, why are you being like this? Like, I thought we were friends. And then he started threatening me. He's like, I'm going to do a diss track on you. I'm going to fucking end your career, you lispy little F-word boy. And he just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And it was just DMs. And then he started live tweeting it too, like on his actual Twitter, like away from his DMs, where he's like, if Locodoco doesn't apologize to me in 7 days, like, I'm going to release a diss track on him. I'm going to tell all the secrets. And then someone donated to me asking about that. Yo, Leviathan said he'll release a diss track on you if you don't apologize to him in 7 days. Like, are you gonna do anything? I'm like, no, it's fine. Tell Leviathan I'm never gonna apologize. If he wants to release the diss track, he can release it whenever. And then Leviathan blocked me on Twitter, so I had to I went on a different account to see what he said, and then he deleted all those tweets, and he just said, whatever, the problem's not worth it. Like, I'm just not gonna say anything. So I don't know how or why, but I always get in like fights with crazy people. I'm curious, what was your experience?
Dude, one thing though I have to say is what I love about the way he did it, because the key thing is that Loco didn't respond. So basically Leviathan did that classic thing that girls always post on the internet, you know, like on like Tinder or whatever, where like the first message is like, hey baby, what are you doing tonight? And then when the girl doesn't answer, it's like, you know, like 2 hours later, it's like, come on, you can answer me. You know, I'm not like every other guy. And then it's like 3 hours later, like, you fucking bitch. Fucking, this is why people like you are a piece of shit. You should die in fight. It's like, and she hasn't even said anything. You're like, what the fuck? What happened to this dude over the 3 hours, basically, right? Mm-hmm. So cool. He used to be your coach, right? Yeah, so can you give us some insight?
So my experience was nothing like you were talking about, but we had like, we got him as a coach when we just acquired, or actually not, when we finished like really bad split and we only got out of like relegations, we won relegations, then we had to practice for the some IEM tournament, and so we took him as a coach, as an online coach, because he's from Canada, I think, to help us practice for this tournament. And we also got cover chart at that time, so I think at like online he was very useful, and at least from the standpoint of like player that never had a coach before, he was quite useful. He had a decent game knowledge, and he helped us win this IEM. But after that, we decided to make him like our main coach, and the organization traveled him to the
gaming house.
To the gaming house, and we also got our first year or second year I think it was the first year of gaming house actually. And in the gaming house he was not like he was online. Yes. He was much less useful, I would say, if he was useful at all. And we have some like, I don't know if we should disclose it or not, but me and Edward have some really cool photos of our boot camps, of our boot camp after.
I believe actually this was posted online, Diamond. The picture
Oh,
you're
yeah.
talking about, right, is one where when they left this house, right?
Yeah.
Like this is how you know someone's a nerd, right? He didn't clean up, and I'm not joking. This looks like heroin addicts have been like broken into a house and have been living there for a month. Like there's just cans and dirt and everything and cigarettes put out. It's the most dirty room you've ever seen. This picture, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty
That's
wild.
actually that was disgusting to clean part of this up.
I guess it's good that you didn't get to see his crazy side, and I do think he went more crazy after he couldn't get coaching jobs anymore. He's always like trying to coach and like always asking for it on Twitter. So I think you saw the side of him that was like less crazy.
Here's the thing. I don't want to comment too much on this because I will just say it. What makes this mildly awkward, not really because it's me, I don't get awkward in that sense, but for a normal human, is that I actually just found out recently that Leviathan is actually going to be doing some work with the site that I write for, VP Esports. So technically, I don't want to flame too much, you know, not a guy I've had beef with, but I will say your story is not entirely unusual, Loco, because I actually used to follow Leviathan on Twitter, you know, when he was a coach of Alliance. I actually thought, I don't think I've ever flamed him. I was pretty nice to him, you know, promoted a lot of his content and stuff. And he did one day out of nowhere just do like some really weird, like aggressive flame to me online on Twitter. And as usual, here's the thing. I actually don't tend to like beef with people on Twitter. If people just say stupid shit, I just
Sure,
don't
you
follow
don't
them.
beef with people on Twitter.
No, I beef with people in real life, mate, when I can make some money off it. I'm not just going to fucking put a show on for free. Conor McGregor doesn't just go having fun. I guess Conor McGregor's a bad pick. He actually does. But Anderson Silva then doesn't just go street fighting people, does he? He waits till you pay for the pay-per-view. Then he'll fucking do that shit. So, yeah, if you get Leviathan on here, we can have a fucking throwdown. But, you know, maybe that's the next guest. Maybe we can have an episode, right? Are you ready? I'll give you the best line. Are you ready for the best line of the episode, Loco?
Yeah.
What you could do is we'll have him on the show. We'll talk seriously. We'll also have a bit where we get into the drama, and at the end, you just have to sign off by saying, "I'm not crazy. I'm just Loco. He is crazy," and then just end like that. And then just end like that, and that'll be the most BM way to end the episode ever.
Man. Well, what was your flame with him? I'm curious, actually.
I can't even remember. It was just some minor thing. Like, it wasn't anything big. That's why I'm saying it was so... I thought it was out of character, you know, someone that's got along with well, and then out of nowhere... I think it was one of those things where when people get to know you, but they're not actually friends of yours, people sometimes, like, overstep the bounds and say something, like, super critical, and you're like, I didn't really ask for your opinion, actually, like, shit heel, like, unfollow, you're out of my life, deleted, ghosted. Ghosted.
Oh.
Basically in that scenario, I'm the girl who just blocks your number, and then you're just contact this bitch. You changed your phone number. You message her on Facebook. You answer me. Come on, you can't just. What did it mean? Nothing to you? And I'm just like, I'm not talking to him right now. He's crazy. He's acting crazy. I'm just moving on with my life. You know, it wasn't a big deal to me. Anyway, there must be another question.
Well, what is it? Let me ask kind of a mini personal question, and let's end the show because we've been doing it over for 2 hours.
Okay.
So I grew up in a lot of foreign countries, and I've actually had a lot of Russian friends. And one thing I noticed is like Russians in general marry extremely early. I know Alex Vish also married extremely early. Is that like more of like a cultural thing, or like is it like just I just randomly met Russians that married a lot, or that married early a lot?
I think that's probably, you can say that it's cultural because basically in Russia there are like a lot of young marriages, and there are a lot of like kids being born at like age of 18, and basically after the kid immediately starts a marriage. And it's kind of the pattern that our country follows, but it's not, we don't view it as a good thing, but we don't view it as a bad thing. You know, I've read some American writers, and I read some like smart people on the internet, and they are like saying that, you know, guys, if you're smart, you won't marry until 26, because at 26, a man actually starts to understand like the life kind of, and then he can make real decisions. And in Russia, there is no one to tell you such things. So if you don't read English communities, you will never ever think that marrying someone at age of 18 is bad. And when you get to 18 and then you meet a girl or meet a guy that you are, that you think you love, but actually you're just affectionate with.
Infatuated, yeah.
Yeah. And there, in Russians' mind, there is nothing stopping them from marriage. You know, if it's not a big thing, then we're going to just divorce. You know, so maybe that's like it. But yeah, I do know that in my country there's a lot of young marriages.
Okay.
And I don't know how it's in other countries, but I do know that it's kind of a problem in my mind.
Mm-hmm. Doran, any thoughts on young marriages?
Well, actually, I know an interesting thing. This is a question I have for you along those lines, Diamond. Isn't it also sometimes a cultural thing that in Russia people will say they're married when really they just mean they're in like a really long-term relationship, like they didn't have an official marriage? Like, didn't at some point in time people used to say you were married, but you just had like a long-term relationship, right?
It's like in Russian there is a term. I don't know how it's in English, but it's like. I don't know the exact translation, but it's like home marriage, kind of. And so you're allowed to say that you're like shortly, you're allowed to say that you're married when you're just like living with someone for a very long time. But I think it's not being used too often, but from time to time people use it.
Okay. My only thoughts on this topic, because obviously it's not one I would claim to be an expert on, it's not really my field, would be I kind of agree with something that Diamond was saying there, that like on the one hand, there's certainly going to be cases where if two people get married when they're 19, what are the odds when they're 35 that they're going to be like well matched, you know? If they grow as people, they could obviously just naturally, not even by any malice, grow completely apart. Could easily happen, right? So unfortunately, in that scenario, maybe that means the marriage is going to end and it wasn't a good thing. But then again, the reason I have an issue on this topic, because it's obviously so specific to each person, is because it's not like if you go and look at America, where there's loads of divorce, it's like 50% of the time that's a good thing. Like if anything, if you look statistically in America, they always say famously that if you don't get married, that like your life course in general is like you generally like either don't make as much money or like you end up in a worse scenario or whatever. So like one of the rules they say is at some point you should get married, you should have a job, you know, like certain things you have to do basically. So I don't know, I kind of go either way on that one because I don't think there's like a hard or fast rule, you know.
Well, I 100% agree with you on that, on marrying young and like people being different. Like I think I'm a very different person to who I was when I was 19, and if I met my ideal partner for when I was 19, she would definitely not be my ideal partner when I turned 26 or 27. And I think that's true for a lot of people.
But do you think it's better to divorce?
I think divorce is better. Divorce, of course, is a bad thing, but divorce is better than being in a shitty marriage.
Yes. Here's the problem with that, Diamond. Like my take on that's the same as what Loco basically said. Like here's the problem. It's like in theory, divorce is bad, but I think a lot of divorces are people who made the wrong choice in getting married in the first place. And so they were people where if it's really bad, like I've seen what families can be like when they don't get divorced and it's really, really bad scenario. That can be worse than the divorce. So again, it's like it depends what the initial scenario is as to what the outcome is. What do you think?
I think the really big problem, at least in Russia, I think, or not in Russia, but it used to be in USSR, as I think right now, because I have a lot of examples, but I'm not sure if my examples is enough data to say that it's like 100% true. But what I saw is that even though in USSR a lot of people were married very young, there were not very much of divorces, and so people were actually very hardly criticized for divorces, and so some marriages stayed for a very long time without being healthy. And there are still a lot of couples from USSR are still married even though they are unhappy with each other. And that's, I think, a much bigger of a problem than just like marrying each other and then divorcing each other like a couple of years later. That's not a very good or smart thing, but I think it's not like the most terrible. But the very terrible thing is that people stayed together for much longer than they should, and that's kind of actually the Russian or USSR thing that had like a tendency which I saw happening.
Oh, so Diamond, thank you so much for doing the show. I know English isn't your most natural or language, but thank you so much for doing it in English. Do you have any final thoughts, any kind of shout outs you want to do?
Yeah, the only shout out I want to do is to you, Loco, and Florin for like inviting me here and having a really great talk, and also like I like when people talk more than me, so it was a really great experience. And thank you very much.
No problem. Спасибо.
Спасибо вам.
Okay, Cool. So other than your Twitter, which is obviously listed, is there anywhere people can follow you? Like,
Oh,
Are you streaming much now?
no, I'm not streaming, but yeah. I don't know. Don't just list my Twitter. That's enough.
Yeah, just follow him on Twitter and leave it at that.
all right, cool. Dorian, any last words you want to end on?
Not really. See you next time. Peace.
Alright.
Maybe let's see if the Leviathan's here.
Okay.
Summon the Leviathan.
Yeah, guys, please invite him to your
Yeah,
next
why
show.
not?
Okay,
It'll be
sure.
great.
I'm blocked, so Dorian, you're gonna have to be the one asked.
I'll see what I can do. See what I can do, man.
All right, cool. Later, guys.